did you?
I did fix the problem. Oh, but now I can't move my chair back. That's unfortunate. Well, probably should
That
switch.
window behind you is very bright in contrast to you.
I
It makes
know.
it look weird.
Oh, I don't like that. Why is that? Why is it like that? Does it look like that on the stream?
What?
You'll
Very
say.
bright?
No, on yours.
Oh, you're right. That looks weird. What
Yeah.
is happening with that?
Can you
I see that.
can you turn off your camera and then turn
That
it back on?
that that's a you thing. That's not a me thing.
Yeah, no, it's not a you thing. Now it's fine. It looks fine on the
No,
stream.
on the stream right now. I mean, it's 10 seconds, 50 minutes, whatever behind. So right now it still looks weird.
Oh, what the
But
hell? Why? Why is it doing that? That's very strange. Yeah, that's definitely me. Ah, that's so annoying. Oh well, you're just gonna look like a ghost. It's weird because every time you move your hand in front of the camera, it fixes it. So everyone's
all right, so just tell me when it just like wink at me or something so we don't interrupt the flow of conversation. Let me know when it happens and I'll wave my hand.
I'm just going to, for people who are watching this, every once in a while, I'm just gonna be like,
Yeah, and that'll tell me.
like right now. That's weird. I don't know. Uh, it's fine. We can hear you
If it's
fine.
not,
That's all that matters.
if it's not one thing, it's the other.
Yeah, yeah. One week. One week we'll be able to do this without technical issues. Anyway, let's start the show. Let's do the intro. It's intro time, everybody. Let's do the intro. In 3, 2, 1. This podcast is brought to you by the Arete Podcast Network. Go to aretemedia.org to check out plenty of other podcasts from oh my god. Oh no, we butchered the first take. This happens every once in a while. My flow's thrown off because my chair's in a different position apparently. Let's do the intro again, shall we? In 3 serious face. In 3, 2, 1. This podcast is brought to you by the Arete Podcast Network. Go to aretemedia.org to check out plenty of podcasts from all of our friends. And if you want to create your own podcast, you can go to aretemedia.org and they will have all the resources for you. That's aretemedia.org. ARETE media.org. On with the show, Jordan.
On with the show, Justin.
The Spotify listeners don't get to hear all the technical fuck-ups. But they get to hear about it later. So they get to participate. All 4 people who listen to us on Spotify.
Ooh,
Hi, everybody
yep.
on Spotify. Leave a comment every once in a while.
There are fans.
We have people. We have 22 subscribers, everybody. You know, before we get into the news properly, we have this is gonna be a very distracting day for me. George just looks like a ghost. He's a ghost now. Yeah, we have 23 subscribers. Hello, 23 subscribers. Thank you for watching these. These get 10 to 12 views an episode. So like we're moving up.
So the real question is this more distracting than me being upside down like I was that one time, or less distracting?
I mean, the upside down thing was fixable because we know. I don't think this is fixable. I think it's just something we're gonna have to put up with for this episode. And it might be me. I don't know. I tend to think it's Discord.
On my screen, it looks fine.
I tend to believe it's Discord. It's just Discord. Anyway, on to the news, Jordan. Jordan, do the news theme song. Stop! I don't know why I ask for it every single week, and it's never good. It's never good. Anyway, so Jordan, did you hear? Start off with. Did you hear? Oh yeah, on today's show, we didn't go through what was gonna happen on today's show. Man, I'm all discombobulated today. My chair is in a wrong spot. It's throwing off the groove. So today, we're obviously gonna talk some news. Apparently, there was a Batman game that was gonna be in the Nolanverse. That's pretty interesting. There's a movie where it's What If Bambi, but upsetting, and I'm kind of into it this time. We're going to talk about some Invincible stuff. There's images of the Lion King movie. It sure looks like a lion. And they're apparently making a new Matrix movie. They're just doing what they said they were going to do in Matrix 4. We could talk about all that stuff. And then later, it's the 80s and 90s, everybody. We're talking about the 80s and 90s, mostly movies because TV shows are hard. We'll talk about maybe some element of a TV show, maybe, perhaps. But that's coming later in the show. For starters, to start off with, we already did the new theme song. We're not doing it twice. No, stop. I just said we weren't doing it twice. I just said that. So apparently there was a Batman. There's going to be a Batman Arkham game. Not Arkham game.
Really?
Batman Nolanverse game. It was going to be a open world Batman game that took place in the Nolanverse, where you would play as the Christian Bale version of Batman. And it's one of those things where I feel like I knew that. This felt like new information, but then the more I read about it, I was like, I feel like I had heard that. But the interesting part of it, there's been a massive and extensive gameplay leak where a bunch of images and a bunch of gameplay, has come out. And I didn't share it with you because it wasn't terribly interesting looking. It was just a different sort of overlay, a different UI, and it basically it was slow and it looked just like the Arkham games. So I'm like, this isn't really all that interesting looking to me. And to be fair, it was still like early days, so I imagine it was probably just on the same build as the Arkham games, just to see how it functioned, and it probably would have changed as that game evolved. But the interesting part of it was that game eventually became the Lord of the Rings games. The ones,
Really?
Yeah, Shadow of Mordor, yeah. So it was going to be the first game that had the Nemesis system.
Huh. Wonder how that would have worked in terms of Batman.
I mean, I'm guessing it would have been like crime bosses, probably. It was like you'd go in and you'd have to take down various mob bosses. If I had to guess, would be how they would do it. It works for Batman. Like that system is criminally underutilized. Like, I know that they're gonna do it for that Wonder Woman game, but superhero games should have that. Should just have that system. Like Spider-Man should have that system. Like,
yeah, I mean, you could even take that system and make it just apply to his villains in general.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I mean, obviously they would do. I mean, I'm guessing they would do it where like, the overlords would be the supervillains, and they would just swap out. They'd go to Arkham and then they'd come back. It's how I figure it would. But then like part of that system,
or conversely, you make it where each area of the map, basically, you know how in Shadow of Mordor, when you go to the different map, it's a different army?
Yeah.
You make it where each area of the map or each portion that you unlock or whatever, there's a different quote-unquote army, which is like the enemies in the one area are like the Joker's army, for example, and each of the orcs would be each of the people in his organization, probably. Kind of thing.
Yeah, probably.
Or like Two-Face or any of them.
Penguin. Yeah, they'll have Penguin. They would have a series of armies of bad guys, and you'd work. But then once you get to the top, it's like, okay, once I get to the Joker, that's where I'm like, part of the fun of that is subjugating the orcs. So like, I'm like, well, how do I get it where I'm making the Joker work for me now? Unless that wouldn't have been part of it, but that's most of the fun of those games for me. It's not them learning or getting better. I didn't. That part of it was like, oh right, that's cool. But for me, it was like the slowly building up an army and having enough guys to.
I'm the same way. I like being able to brand them.
Yeah, and I'm like, I don't. That's why I don't get that for the Wonder Woman game either, where it's like, how are they gonna?
The Wonder Woman one, I could only see if they take the lasso of truth and somehow make it so that subjugates their will.
Yeah, I mean, it depends if they do like if they do like it's World War I or World War II Wonder Woman, then I suppose you could do it where it's just you buy loyalty, but that's not as much fun.
I see it more being them using the lasso as a way to explain it away.
I mean, yeah, maybe. But yeah, that's, to me, half the fun is being able to subjugate people. Without that, it's not. The guys learning and getting better is like the least interesting element of those games.
It makes it hard.
Yeah. The second one's less frustrating. The first one, it would get annoying because it would be like, I wouldn't be losing to the orcs. The orcs would lose to each other, or the orcs would the one that pissed me off the worst was when they would die to random animal attacks. And it
The
was like, that's,
Caragors and
yeah, I
stuff.
was like, that's bullshit. I'm losing. This game is unnecessarily difficult now because he's got killed by 5 Caragors. Like, that's not, as a player, I'm not causing that input. And I don't like that. It's not fun for me. Having that lack of control is not fun for me.
I I definitely think the second one was the more refined, the better
Oh yeah,
version of it.
yeah. It was a real shame that. I mean, they could do a third one, but no. Though based on the way that
Uh,
game
uh,
ends,
with how
no.
it ended, I don't see how you really do a third one. But
Yeah, like I think there's a DLC that they did where you play as
the girl, I think you continue the story as the
yeah.
girl.
There's one where there's one where you do him where you're him, the guy again, the guy, the main guy, and he's a ring wraith now, and he's it's set during Lord of the Rings, and it's like an
Oh,
alternate. What
huh,
if he was one of the ring wraiths instead?
interesting.
Kind of, I think I could be wrong about that. I think it's kind of like that one where it's like, what if the Force Awakened or the Force Unleashed guy was a Darth Vader instead of regular Darth Vader?
I thought it was that was the one where you play as the girl and basically you're continuing the story and he is now a ring wraith and he's a boss
Oh,
in it.
it could be, it could be. I could have, I thought that it was there was one where you played as him, but yeah, I know that when you boot it, there's like 3 ones and 2 of them have different characters.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're thinking of the Galadriel one where you play as the girl and you fight against him.
Probably. I mean, I don't honestly don't know. Yeah, I just know that it ends with him becoming a ring wraith. Spoiler alert
Yeah.
for the end of that game. So Invincible news. Did you watch? Have you seen the back half of season
I
of
haven't
season
I
2?
haven't I haven't watched it, but I know that they kind of did the crossover from the comic, the crossover with Spider-Man, but not
Yeah,
really
it's
because it's not
lame.
really him.
Yeah,
Um,
it's legally distinct but not dissimilar to Spider-Man
yeah, but it's voiced
by
by a guy who played Spider-Man.
yeah, by Josh Keaton. Yeah, yeah. And it's
Um,
like I don't know. The joke didn't work for me because I'm like, you just cut it then. If you can't do it, cut it.
I haven't watched the scene because I'm trying to watch it naturally, but I'm aware that it
Yeah,
happened.
it's okay. It's one of those things where it's like, um, it's not it's not good enough to warrant a 2-year hiatus, and it's not good
Yeah,
enough to warrant
fair enough.
an additional 3-month break in between, which killed all of them. Every review I've seen, and I agree, has been like, you shouldn't have done that break in the middle. You shouldn't have done that break in the middle. That break in the middle was the biggest mistake. It completely killed the momentum of your season, and the rest of the season is not the best episode is the last one. And even then, it's like I was reading about it. It was like apparently it combines like several comic books worth of like scenes and stuff into like 40 minutes. It's super condensed and not in a good way from people who read the comics. For me, it felt rushed, and it's funny because he's like, oh. I mean, I peeked ahead. I peeked ahead into the future of where this story goes, and yeah, man, it's interesting. And this is where we get to the news, where Robert Kirkman teased that season 3 is going to be absolutely huge, which is like, I mean, season 2 is kind of jogging in place until you get to the good shit kind of season, where it's like, okay, yeah, you're going to get to the good shit in season 3, like the really good shit. And yeah, there's some interesting shit. Not to give anything away, because I know you haven't looked into the future, but there's some interesting shit that pops up involving the bad guy at the end of the season. But it if it's going to take 2 years a season to come out, we're going to be all 100 before that ever happens, before it ever gets there, unless you rush your way through it, which nobody wins at that point.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, it sort of seems like it suffers what a lot of shows suffers, where it's taking too long.
Too long and it's too short.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
it's not letting things.
And in terms of this, terrible marketing because I, for the longest time, wasn't even aware that the second part was out.
Yeah, most people weren't. Most people had no clue that the second part was out. And they're like, "Oh, the second part is out," and then it's like, "Yeah, the rest of the season is just all
Tepid.
right, tepid at best." And like I said, yeah, there's some interesting stuff. There's for sure some interesting stuff coming down in this season going that will happen. But it's taking so long to get there. And there's a really terrible joke about, and that's from the comic, where they're joking about.
I saw that scene where it's the guy and he's like, "You can cheap out on animation by reusing stuff and da 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 da." Yeah,
Yeah, and he's like, "Oh, yeah, animation takes a long time. That's why it's taking so long for the second season." Like, dude, this is not the play. And so many people were ball licking, being like, "It's so fun." It's not. It's really not.
no,
When the thing
no.
when the show didn't really get marketably better in terms of animation, like if it was a astoundingly better animated show now, I'd be like, all right, fine, yeah, you can make the jokes. But it's largely the same quality of a show, and it took forever to come out, and you had the balls to put a mid-season break in the middle of a 8 episode season. Like you don't.
Acknowledging an issue does not excuse the issue.
Yeah. Being aware, self-awareness does not absolve you of a thing, and it's like, yeah, you're not absolved of doing this. You still did this, and it still makes
Yeah,
the show look bad.
yeah.
It's funny. So yeah, the other bit of Invincible news is, yeah, the creator, he commented on the controversial decision to split season 2. He said, I've certainly heard from people who didn't care for it, and I understand when you're enjoying a thing, it gets taken away and given back to you at a later date. He says it was not say we giving it back to a later date is not for the best, but it was a necessity for the production of season 2. Which, like, yeah, no, it wasn't. No, it
That's
absolutely wasn't.
bullshit.
Yeah, that's
You could
totally
just
bullshit.
you could just wait until it's all done and release it. What the fuck are you talking about?
And it took 2 years for it to come out already.
Like
People
I'd
could have
rather
waited
it
an
takes.
additional 3 months and get it all at once.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'd rather if it like if you to take it to the extreme, if it comes out in 2 years and you take a half, like you give me half, I'd rather wait 4 years and get the whole thing.
Or conversely, and this might be the hottest take I have. I think, all right, I think we need to bring back cable.
No.
Well, okay. Instead of we need to bring back cable instead of replacing or turning cable into or turning streaming into cable. We need to bring back cable instead of turning streaming into cable. I don't know why that. Because have these two things can exist at the same time, and they did exist at the same time. Have it where you have cable shows which are 20 24 episodes long, are funded by advertising, and you put all the advertising on cable and let that be it, and then use the money you make from cable to make the premium shows on streaming, and have it where I pay $10 for streaming and I get to watch these shows. Like, have them fund each other. Like, don't.
I mean, yeah, okay. I'm not. But the issue is that no one wants cable.
Right. But
At that point, if you the issue is no, they can't exist because unless you're going to make the cable substantially cheaper, and that was the issue. That's why
yeah.
the streaming came into being, was because cable was so expensive. So the only way your system works is and that's essentially what they've done is they have the ad version of these streaming services where it's like it's $5 cheaper. That's what they've done. They have turned streaming into cable.
No,
We're there.
Certainly they're trying.
We're there. We're there.
I don't think it's
happening.
succeeding. But it's not. The thing is, a lot of people have canceled there. The attempts like this never work. They never succeed. And if they do succeed, it'll just turn back into cable, which is bring my point full circle. Then just bring back cable. Like, stop fighting. Clearly, we need cable. Clearly, regular cable needs to exist. Clearly, there's a place for it, and we need it. So,
I mean, only so long as greed continues to be a motivator in the world.
I mean, yes, and money, right? Necessity to create, yes. But, like, don't do this thing where it's like, yeah, you toss, or stop pretending that streaming shows are like cable, where it's like you can get away with a mid-season break on cable because that's how cable works. But you can't get away with that on streaming. I can't stand it. It's the same thing, like, you already opened Pandora's box on releasing all this shit all at once. You can't get away with the weekly shit anymore. Yes, I know that reduces people watching, and I know it fucks you, but you did it to yourself. You did this to yourself. Like,
yeah.
you killed scheduled television when you needed scheduled television. It's so evident and apparent that they need scheduled television, and you killed it. You opened this box. You have to live with that. Like, yeah, now every time
or come up with a new solution.
Yeah, exactly. So Jordan, did you hear that the Silver Surfer is a girl? Whoops.
No, it's The Silver Surfer is a man.
The new
He,
Silver Surfer and the shit. There we go. The new Silver Surfer in the new Fantastic Four movie is not going to be the traditional guy who is usually the Silver Surfer. It is going to be his girlfriend, the other chick, who will now be the Silver Surfer. Right?
oh, okay. Okay, that's not so bad.
But Jordan, you know that dumbasses are freaking out about it.
I was gonna be a little bit irritated if you were gonna be like they're taking Norin Rand or whatever the character's name is, and just making it into a girl. I would have just been like, no, what they're doing is far more sensible. Just make it so that Galactus chooses a different person to be his herald.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Who
no,
gives a
yeah,
shit? Who gives a shit?
that absolutely. He's had dozens of heralds.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Who cares?
That
Who
that
cares
that
who
that
the
that,
Herald is?
that irritates me far less than if they just gender bent a character for the sake of gender bending a
I
character
mean,
in a situation where it's you don't need to do that. He could just pick a girl.
you could just pick a girl, and he did. He
And
picked
just,
it. He picked a girl
yeah,
this time. Who
like
cares?
that's fine. That's
That's
okay.
fine. I'm sorry you're not
That
getting your
makes
weird bald man. It's gonna be a weird bald woman
like
now. Like, who
that's
cares?
fine. It's just I just don't like you know me. I don't like when you needlessly gender bend a character for the sake of it. Like it's
I
just
mean, even if they did, who cares? Yeah, I mean,
I just in this specific instance, when there's like Galactus doesn't discriminate. He would just pick a different person.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
you could just have another character there.
My bar
So
is
to specifically gender bend Norin Rand or whatever the bald guy just would be you would only do that in this instance to piss off people.
I truly, the thing is, and I can't stress this enough, don't care enough about the Silver Surfer to give a shit. I just don't care enough. I
have
don't
the
care.
smallest.
You could have called her
I have,
Nora Rad, and
I
I would have been like, I don't give a
I
shit.
have I have the smallest bit of nostalgia for him, mostly because of that show, and this ties in that the animated show from the '90s. I think it's from the
No.
'90s. It might be from the '80s.
Yeah,
I like that.
I've
I like that
literally
show.
no affinity, no nostalgia. I mean, I remember that show. I know I watched it. I don't care about it. The only thing I care about that Fantastic Four movie, the one thing they need to get right, I don't care about the casting. I mean, I have no issue with it, but I don't care about it. The one thing I care about is Galactus has to be a man, and he has to wear a stupid goddamn fucking hat. That's
He better
it.
not be.
He better not be a. He better not be a
fucking
cloud. He better not be a fucking cloud. He needs to be a man in a stupid outfit. That's it.
Yeah.
That's the one thing. It's
I-
not a
ideally-
high bar.
Ideally, a purple outfit, but it can be a
no,
different color.
no. Sorry. When I say outfit, I thought it was implied. It has to be the purple outfit. It's got to be like everyone's. Yes, I know everyone's been ragging on the MCU, but they've been doing comic accurate for years now. I'm sorry. I thought it was implied. Yes, it has to be purple. Not it can be purple. No, has to be purple.
See, my bar is a little bit lower. I would be okay if the costume color is wrong, as long as it looks right.
I mean,
Like, as long as long as the visual, like it could be blue, for example.
Honestly, my bar is so much lower. As long as it's a person, as long as it's just not a cloud.
Just not
It's
a cloud.
not a cloud.
Really.
The bar is not high.
It's not high bar. I just want it to not be a cloud.
I want it to be a guy.
You had gigantic. You had in the Marvel or the Eternals movies. You had the Titan giant guys there. Just make him a giant guy like
For
that.
sure. Well, and what's interesting is like all the stuff that I've said they should do. Is what they're doing for it allegedly, very rumoredly. Like apparently, it's going to take place in another universe, which is like the first thing I said they should do. Apparently, they're gonna be their whole thing is they're gonna be like multiverse travelers, which is the second thing I said they should do. And it sounds like it's gonna be a thing of like, yeah, Galactus basically chases them from their universe, which is also what I said they should do. So like, and it sounds like Galactus is going to be a guy. Certainly, he will have a voice because there's rumors where he was gonna be played by Javier Bardem, actor you don't know by name, and I don't know anything you know that he was in. Um,
He's a person.
he's a Hispanic fellow who is quite a good actor. He was in, I think he was the bad guy in No Country for Old Men, a movie you've never seen. Um, and he was, if you've seen the Little Mermaid remake, I believe he was the Little Mermaid's dad. Anyway, he supposedly is Galactus.
King Triton.
Yes, that's the character's name. But yeah, he's apparently, there was rumors around a while that he was Galactus. So who knows? I am actually excited for that Fantastic Four movie because the bar is really low. It's so low. So it's just like, it doesn't have to do much to at least be okay. That's what's kind of, everyone's talking about how it has this high bar to clear. And I'm like, it does not have a high bar to clear. I don't know why anyone suggests it has a high bar to clear.
It has about as high a bar as any X-Men movie that comes out does, which is to say, not a very high one.
I know that's not true. That's not true. It does have a high one because, in my opinion, the only good X-Men movie is, and you're gonna think I'm gonna say Deadpool, but no, the only good X-Men movie is First Class. That's the only good X-Men movie. That is a genuinely good movie, and it is.
No, I know. I know, but I'm saying there's so many bad ones that it doesn't have to do much to be better than all the bad ones.
Oh, true. But I'm saying the bar is X-Men First Class. So it's a high bar for good X-Men movies, is what I'm saying. But to be a passable X-Men movie is not a high bar, is what I would say. So yeah, for this movie to be passable, the last one was Fan4stick, a movie that a segment of the internet wants to pretend is good for some reason. That happens with bad movies now. People just decide that they're now good. It's one of the most bizarre things I've ever seen.
Oh, I was under the impression that we don't acknowledge that and we pretend that it doesn't exist.
Or they want,
but some people think it's good now. Okay, clearly I haven't been drinking enough of the Kool-Aid.
Or there's people who think that, and I love the Tim Story Fantastic Four movies. Don't get me wrong, but they're bad movies. Like, they're not good movies. I love those movies. I truly do. But please. You can like bad movies. It's okay. Those are bad movies.
Those are a product of their time.
Yeah, absolutely. Like they're pre-MCU superhero movies. Like they're okay for what they are, but they're not good movies. The best part about that movie is the Thing's costume. The costume design in those movies are pretty good. And honestly, Silver Surfer is pretty good in the second one. But other than that, not good movies. So apparently the first image of the new Lion King movie, the
not live action one.
Yeah, the prequel where it's the Mufasa not live. Apparently an image came out of it. Disney released the first image, and he sure looks like a lion. He looks different than the last one. Also, apparently this one's not directed by Jon Favreau, which is interesting. All right, we'll watch that when it comes to Disney Plus, but that's it. I'm no longer paying money for those.
I'm not wasting my time in a theater where screaming children are going to ruin the experience anyway.
Yeah, exactly. But it's probably not going to be a very good movie.
Which is for a movie which would probably have had us walking out being like, yeah, that was about as good as I was expecting, which is not very.
Not very.
Except our rage would be intensified by times 10 by children that have no theater etiquette.
No, not children who have no theater etiquette. Parents who have no theater etiquette. Children don't know better. I never hold anything against a child. I will for sure hold it against their parents.
True.
I mean, that's what happened with Willy Wonka.
You're right. I should say children whose parents have fostered no theater etiquette.
That's better. Yeah, that's much better. No. It's got to be a really good-looking kids movie. Yeah, I got to hear amazing things about it. It has to change my life. Now.
Or it's got to be in the VIP theater.
Like, the only one I'm even remotely inclined to take a chance on is probably the next Spider-Man movie. That's probably going to be the next kids movie I watch in a theater.
Sad that's considered a kids movie.
Yeah. So did you hear about Bob Iger and Ike Perlmutter and Nelson Peltz trying to take down Bob Iger and get on the board at Disney so they can make it less woke or whatever?
Sounds like a whole Game of Thrones episode that you've described there.
Yeah, so there's a rich guy named Nelson Peltz, and he wants to get Yeah, he wants to get seats on on Disney's board of directors, along with Ike Perlmutter, and they want to get rid of Bob Iger. And yeah, the Disney proxy battle centered around Peltz, who is also the chairman of the board of directors of Wendy's, apparently, and Trion Partners attempting to bring urgently needed change to Disney's board. According to Variety, Peltz cited the media company's stock underperforms over the last several years because, they decided that every movie needs to make $1 billion now, even though that's never how anything has worked ever. These are the
I
people.
mean, I don't. Okay, here's what I'm gonna say. In terms of Disney, I love Disney. I'm a big Disney fan. I would go to Disneyland right now, right here, if I could, and make a lightsaber. But that's neither here nor there. The point of what I'm trying to say is that I do find that their movies have gotten a little stale. I'm a little bit tired of them just remaking their same movies but bad.
Yeah, right, right.
Like I don't. I'm not. Woke shit is such a stupid argument to make to remove someone as CEO. Really, the argument I would be making is you're just releasing the same movies but bad. Um, so maybe a change up is not the worst thing in the world? Question mark.
The problem, no, you don't want those guys. You don't want those
I,
guys.
I, I don't so much mean that. I just meant as a
Yeah,
general
you know,
statement.
like you want.
Like
The thing is,
someone more creative could maybe be put in there.
I think Bob Iger is learning the lesson though, because he had made a comment when asked him about woke shit, and he had said, uh, also unrelated. I just realized I forgot to set my timer, so I now have no idea how long we've been going. It's gonna be solely based on the time, so we're free balling it today apparently because I forgot to turn on the timer. Anyway, Bob Iger. Um, Oopsie poopsie. Bob Iger, I think is starting. He tried to like appeal to those people, and it just didn't work because. And he's finally come to like. Someone asked him what somehow it came up what he thought woke meant, and he basically responded with, "Oh, it's basically meaningless, right? It doesn't have any meaning. It doesn't mean anything. Nobody can define what it is. It's basically meaningless."
It's a nebulous concept.
Yeah, that no one can define. It means whatever you want it to mean. And what sucks is you can't be like, yeah, man, Disney has gotten a little creatively stale lately, and their movies are same, and there's a sheer amount of them, and you have to pick and choose which ones you want to watch, and it's like, yeah, man, the ones that look just kind of okay, I'm better off waiting until they go to streaming, they go to Disney Plus, and that's why they lose money. You can't say that because then you get lumped in with the people that are like it's bad
because it's woke and there's inclusion and
yeah,
things are different and I don't like change.
or like all the people who are like the Marvels is the worst MCU movie. You're wrong. It's still
Eternals.
It's still Eternals. The worst movie is still Eternals.
It's definitely
not.
it's definitely Eternals.
It's not the Marvels.
People have largely forgotten that you're still talking about the Marvels and how it's bad, whereas people have collectively forgotten that the Eternals exist and want to pretend that it never happened.
The thing is, the reason why the Marvel any negative comment I have to make on the Marvels is really because of those people because the Marvels feels like it's a sequel to a Captain Marvel movie we never saw. Like there's a lot of like payoffs to bits that feel like there was an entire movie of character development that I just missed because Marvel got too scared to give Captain Marvel her own movie because people freaked out about the last one, which was just an okay movie. It wasn't the greatest movie. It wasn't God's gift to women, and it wasn't like the worst movie ever. It was just a fine movie. I remember saying that at the time, and so many people got mad at me because I said it was just an okay movie, and it was just an okay movie. And so they didn't.
It was average.
They didn't do anything with that character and pretended that they did. That was the thing that bugged me about the Marvels was how Miss Marvel pretends that Captain Marvel is a far more famous character than she is. Like,
when really she's been in space for 20 years.
Yeah, it's like she did one thing in the 90s and then fucked off and then came back They came back, had a totally different look there for a while, and then fucked off again, and now looks like she did in the
Well,
90s because these movies
unless
are
unless
inconsistent.
unless the implication is supposed to be that during Endgame she spent a lot of time on Earth, like she was part of the
No.
council. She was part of the council or
Yeah,
whatever,
but
right?
every time she showed up in that movie, she was like, "Yeah, I have to go do something in space. Good luck, everybody else," and then she
Right,
fucked
but
off.
I guess the impression that we're supposed to get is that in between that, like those that the fucking off in space, she spent a lot of time on Earth. I guess.
And that's not even mentioning that they never explain or mention why she doesn't look any older. She doesn't look a day older, and they don't be like
Is
it's because of her powers. No, they never say if
it?
it's her powers.
Yeah.
Not
Well,
not expressly anyway. I guess it's implied, but these movies are so weird but again, it's an okay movie. They're fun movies. Like the best part of the Marvels is Miss Marvel. Like she
Oh
absolutely
yeah,
saves
she's
more
so
of her.
adorable.
I want that. I'm genuinely as like cynical as it is. Like yeah, I guess spoilers for the Marvels, but more so than the Beast showing up in the post credit of that movie. Um, her little bit setting up Young Avengers. The best part about Hawkeye, an otherwise not very good show, is Girl Hawkeye. Like I'm totally stoked to see those two work together in a Young Avengers movie. Like I like their dynamic already. I'm so into it. More of Miss Marvel, please. Like she's so
I
good.
mean, especially because, like, yeah, as time goes on, if you want to continue to string along this MCU thing, which has been going on for a while and probably doesn't need to continue, but if you want to, then you kind of have to realize that your older Avengers are getting old. They
Yeah.
can't do it forever. Like, you have to bring in the next generation.
Until you I mean we've said this before, but the final thing needs to be Secret Wars. That's it.
I mean, I think
That's it.
so.
That's the final. I mean, to be fair, the final one should have been Endgame. Like I stand by that. To this day that should have been the finale of the MCU, and then it should have gone forward. Solo projects, individual projects, like, and you could tell that was maybe the idea because a lot of those post Endgame feel like they were like, this wasn't supposed to connect to anything, but we're still connecting stuff, so we have to. Like Moon Knight. Moon Knight felt like it was its own thing, and then they like had to force it into the MCU because we're still doing that. But like,
I
yeah,
mean, my thing.
go until Secret Wars, and then start over and recast.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I would be perfectly okay with that. But like, if you're gonna continue, you can have it where like you can have it where you have a Thor movie, for example, with whatever, like set up the next MCU, whatever you want it to be, and you can just have it be where it's like he exists in his movie, and he like you can name drop
No,
Iron
I
Man
mean, yeah,
because
that's what we said.
you have the rights to do that, but Iron Man doesn't have to show up, or he could show up.
Yeah.
And in one movie, you could have him show up, and he's there for 5 minutes, and it's a different Iron Man, like like the next generation
I
kind of
guess
thing.
because I grew up like reading comic books, and not enough of these people who watch these movies actually read comic books to be like, yeah, when you read comic books, you never ask yourself why why wouldn't Spider or we'll use DC because it's easier. Why wouldn't Superman just show up in Batman City and help him solve his problems? You never questioned that, so you never needed an explanation for why. I mean, it was sort of like you didn't. They each had their own territory. Like you didn't fuck with another man's
Yeah.
territory. But with Marvel, part of the problem is a lot of these heroes live in the same city. So you're like, well, why don't they help each other? Again, you don't question these things as a
Because
comic
he's
book fan because the
busy.
comic books are.
Spider-Man doesn't help Daredevil because Spider-Man's on the other side of the city, stopping Shocker while Daredevil is fighting Kingpin.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
busy.
They're busy. Like and that's where it's like, yeah, a name drop is fine. You don't need these characters to show up. You don't need them to just be like, oh yeah, Iron Man's up. I mean, to me, the MCU was always at its strongest. Where yeah, you could just be like, yeah, oh yeah, Tony Stark made this for us, and you didn't need Tony Stark to
Actually physically show
actually
up.
physically show up. Exactly. So we have gone off on a wild. We don't do tangents on this show. We've gone off on a wild one. So I don't think getting rid of Bob Iger for two fuckheads is the way to go. The Ike Perlmutter, for those of you who are unfamiliar with Ike Perlmutter, Jordan, do you know who Ike Perlmutter is, or do I have to tell you who Ike Perlmutter is?
I think you're gonna have to tell me. I don't.
He's that guy who's in that sinister image with Donald Trump.
I mean, there's a lot of guys that are in a sinister image.
You know that the video I sent you where it was Donald Trump in that picture with that man, and it's like really sinister
Oh,
picture. You
yeah,
know the
yeah,
one
yeah, yeah, yeah,
where
yeah,
the music
yeah,
just
yeah, yeah, yeah,
that sinister image of Donald Trump and Ike Perlmutter where the sinister
yeah,
music
yeah,
just plays.
yeah, 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 yeah.
We don't put the music in there. Like, I'm gonna when this eventually becomes a short later on, I'm gonna put in the picture, and Jordan, the sound is just there. I mean, you've seen the picture,
I
right?
mean, it just enters your head once you see the picture.
Right, right.
I can't think of what what the sound is at the moment, but it's like a dot dot
Yeah,
dot dot.
you can picture it in your brain when you see the image. You can picture the image, and the music is just there. We don't put it
Yeah,
in. It's just there.
yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Real fast lesson on Ike Perlmutter. Ike Perlmutter. He was the head of Marvel Comics for a while, I think, and he was the one who he was the one who suggested recasting Rhodey with Don Cheadle. Don
Oh
Cheadle
yeah,
with
yeah. And you said that he couldn't distinguish between them.
no,
Right,
no,
right,
no, no,
right.
no, no. What he said was, I
No,
know.
no, no, no. I'm trying to soften it so that on the air we can,
Oh no, fuck that guy. He said that no one would notice because all black people look the same. Is what he said because he is a very bad
Yeah,
racist man. Fuck him. His words can live
yeah,
in infamy.
yeah.
He's also the reason why the Inhumans I mean, the only good thing he ever did was create Miss Marvel to bring it full circle because he's the reason why. Because the X-Men were owned by Fox and not by Marvel, he wanted to get rid of the X-Men in the comics and introduce the Inhumans, and so that's where the idea of the whatever gene. I don't know if you remember that Avengers game, but you know how they were like, oh, the Terrigen gene. That doesn't come from him, but it was his mandate. So basically, they wanted to turn the Inhumans into mutants.
Right,
And
right.
yeah, and it was like certain people have this Terrigen gene, and it basically turns them into mutants, but they're an Inhuman. And then they were gonna write out the Inhumans, and so that's what Miss Marvel is. Miss Marvel is one of those. So when they turned her into a mutant in the MCU and the comics, eventually, it was like, oh well, that makes sense. She's already technically a mutant. It's just a mutant by a different name. So now it's just like, oh, we've aligned her with what she was always meant to be, which is a mutant, and she's the only character who is one of those to like survive, basically.
Because she was popular.
Because she was super popular, yeah. People loved her. Rightfully so. I didn't always love that character, but I do now. Um,
She's grown on me.
so you've seen The Matrix 4, right?
That's the more recent one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So you know the bit in that movie?
once.
You remember the bit in that movie where not Neil Patrick Harris, um, the Jonathan Groff, the kid King George from Hamilton, he says to Neo when he's like, "You need to make a new Matrix game," and Neo's like, "I don't want to make a new Matrix game," and Neo was like, and he's like, "Oh, if you don't make a Matrix game, we'll make one without you. We'll just hire a new guy to make a Matrix game." And that was one big long metaphor that Lana Wachowski didn't want to make a Matrix 4, implied that they were just going to make the Matrix without them. You'll never guess what they did, Jordan. They made the Matrix without them. That was my long way of joking and being like, they're making a new Matrix movie, and they replaced the Wachowskis because the Wachowskis were like, we don't want to do this, and they were like, well, we'll just do it without you, and then they did.
I mean, why? I don't remember how the last one ended, but didn't it kind of have like an ending?
No, actually, it doesn't. I think it ends on kind of a cliffhanger, where it's like,
I only watched it once and it wasn't very good, and it made me go like, hey, maybe we should have left this like in the past where it belongs.
It ended, from what I recall, with both Trinity and Neo are the one now, and they flew off and they were the one, and they were like, we're gonna do more of these maybe if this does well, and then it did well apparently.
Okay,
Yeah.
I don't. Okay.
Yeah, apparently. Anyway, I just thought it was funny how they were in the movie they were like, we could do the Matrix without you, and then they did. I just thought that was funny. So,
okay.
Jordan, did you hear that the Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey is part of a whole new universe now? It's gonna be called the Twisted Childhood Universe.
I did hear that, and it made me groan. And I was like, "Is this necessary? Can we not? Can we not?
I
Can
mean,
we not?
I mean,
Can we not?
okay.
Can we not?
Here's what I'm gonna say, Jordan. Here's what I'm gonna say.
Like,
Yeah,
can we not?"
apparently, it's gonna include a Peter Pan's Neverland Nightmare, Pinocchio Unstrung, and the one they released a trailer for called Bambi: The Reckoning. Which I'm not gonna lie to you, Jordan. I saw the trailer for Bambi: The Reckoning, and I'm kind of all the way into it because it kind of works for me. The basic premise of it appears to be the hunter kills Bambi. The trailer is just like three guys and they all have guns and they're all hunting. And he's like, "Have you ever shot a deer?" And the guy looks at him and goes, "No." He's like, "I have." And then it just cuts to this like killer deer, and he flips over a car with his antlers and like impales a guy with his antlers. And I'm like, you know what?
That sounds so dumb.
Yes,
That sounds that
but
sounds so dumb. I
like
haven't watched any of these. They all, from what you've described, they all sound terrible, and this just sounds terrible.
okay.
Why? Why?
Okay, but the
Why?
Grinch one was good. The Grinch one was good. Apparently, the second Winnie the Pooh one is good. The first Winnie the Pooh one was bad. I will say that one was bad. But that was because it wasn't. It didn't. The thing about it was the thing about Winnie the Pooh, and I had a similar problem with Christopher Robin, which we talked about on the show before. Whereas, like the minute you try to apply any certain level of realism to Winnie the Pooh, it stops making sense. And apparently, the second one goes into details, like explaining like the relationship between Christopher Robin and Winnie the Pooh and being about Winnie the Pooh, whereas the first one is just like a guy in a bad Winnie the Pooh costume kills a bunch of people. That's all it really is. It's not very interesting. This where it's like, well, Bambi is going for revenge against the hunter who killed his mom, and it's like Jaws but with a deer. I'm like I love movies that are like they're like there's a difference between intentionally stupid and
Comically stupid.
yeah, comically stupid, and like this is over the top and ridiculous, and like this is stupid because it's poorly constructed. Like there's a difference, and this is kind of that. Like it makes me think of Kevin Smith announced he was gonna make Moose Jaws, which was basically Jaws,
But with a moose.
but with a moose. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's what it was gonna be. Um,
I'm getting a little bit exasperated by this whole take beloved childhood thing that you loved. I didn't care for Bambi, so I shrug at that. But generally speaking, take beloved childhood thing that you love and turn it into a horror thing. Why do we need to have an entire movie universe of that? Of
I
childhood
look.
things that you loved and cared about, and now they're gonna make them into horror thing? Why?
I mean,
Why?
look. I definitely get
Why?
that, and
Why?
I was there. I was
Why?
there. I was there at first. I was there with you with Winnie the Pooh. But I like the Grinch one so much. That one was so much fun, and it was
Uh,
super funny. So like I'm like, well, if we're gonna do this, if we must, and it appears we must, they might as well be good. They might as well be fun. They might as well be enjoyable. And I'll watch that Bambi one. Um, Apparently, Jared Padalecki has come out and said that they're gonna do a supernatural reunion, but they're all busy. It's basically that's what's preventing it. Is they're all busy.
like a reunion, as in like a la Friends, a documentary style thing, or reunion as in like it's a special where they're doing an episode and it's like they're gonna do like almost. I mean, if they're gonna do that, I would do a supernatural movie.
Yes. They don't have any idea of what it's going to be. It changes every week. So at one point it was a TV show. They were going to do they were like, oh, the Netflix streaming thing taught us that we can, no, don't learn from them. But they were like, it taught us that you can do 8 episodes, 7 episode seasons. The reason why we stopped doing the show is because we were burnt out on doing like 23 episodes a year, which like, okay, fair enough. No, don't do that. Don't do a show. Movie. I'm with you. Do a movie. I've said it like a bajillion fucking times. Do a movie. Do a movie.
What I would do, and I'm partially joking when I say this, I'm bullshitting to be facetious, but it could work theoretically, is having not seen the ending, and not knowing how it ended, and I'm just gonna talk out my ass here for a minute. You have Sam and Dean come back from whatever fate ultimately befell them at the end, which I think is death, but I don't actually know, and I'm just guessing. And you have it where they come back to fight against God's father. And you have the darkness and God come back to help them fight against God's father.
Look, okay. Okay, look, if you're a religious person and you're inclined to religious
Either
beliefs,
that, either
um,
that, or you do the thing that I think they should have always done, and you have it where you scale it back from the whole
hold,
God thing.
hold on, stop just one second. We're about to make a suggestion that a certain segment of people will not like. So if you're a religious person or you're religious minded, plug your ears because we're gonna say some bad things about a person you like. Your ears plugged now? Okay, you've had plenty of warning. Jordan, what should the ultimate bad guy for Supernatural have been? I know where you're going with it.
Jesus.
It should have been
Je-
Jesus.
It should have been Jesus.
It
You should have
should
found
have
out that
been
that that that
Jesus.
that he was like a corrupted prophet or whatever who
Yeah.
like thought that like, thought he was the son of God, wanted to be the son of God, whatever,
And goes
went
crazy.
crazy, and like he's the villain.
Yeah, the
And
one thing
if I did a movie, I came back and did a movie, I would do that
yeah,
story.
absolutely. I hate and there's lots of people who hate it for all the reasons that I've just made you plug your ears for. But I hated the twist that you've gotten that far, right? This is not spoiling anything for you. Spoilers for Supernatural, a very, very long show, and this is a very late the game spoiler for that series. But I hated the fact that they made God evil. I hated that. It was a
I
bad
haven't
twist.
I haven't seen that, but I've seen enough like internet stuff to reference that, so it's like I'm aware that
I thought
happens. I just don't know the
I
details.
thought you did make it. You at least made it to that twist because I know we've talked about it before, and you had seen it, and you because I remember having the conversation of like you hated
I,
it.
I don't know. I don't know if I have or not. If I have, I don't remember it. If I haven't, I'm aware that it happened, so it's sort of a moot point.
Yeah, I just the reason why I know that is because I at least I'm pretty sure you did is because I remember um
I think it was one of those you were like, you're not going to remember this by the time you get there anyway, so I'm going to talk about it
yeah
because I need to talk about it.
no I know I know we had two separate we had an out of context conversation where I told you about it out of context and you were like and you were like out of context I hate it and then I remember you saying in context you didn't hate it and I remember being really mad because I was like what other people need to hate this too because I hate it I hate it I hate it I hate it
I don't
my
I don't specifically remember.
my friends always are like what they don't they it drives me crazy they're always like but we like it I'm like no because it's the laziest possible most obvious like twist you could do it's like oh yeah we need to subvert something obviously what should we subvert oh make God the bad guy and Chuck when he's evil
Oh
is
no,
at his
I think I do remember that vaguely. I'll, to be fair, with that show, and we could spend all day talking about this show, so we're gonna have to cut this short at a certain point. But real briefly, the problem with Supernatural is once you do God's sister, where do you go from there other than God?
why that's why I to go back to keep it on track um I think the evil Jesus. You keep God as the good guy because God to me is not interesting when he's a bad guy. When he's a shit writer who's awful, he's an awful narcissistic person. He just becomes infinitely less interesting when you're like, well, he's just cartoonishly evil now. To me, he's way more interesting when he is a flawed father figure where you're like oh he's a bad absentee dad who fucked off and all the angels resent that I think that's far more interesting and you have a prophet who's gone mad who's gone crazy and well you're like oh well, how do you make him a threat how do you make Jesus a threat like the only one who's a logical big end of the universe apocalyptic threat is God well no what you do is you and I've thought this out because I've had people ask me this question before Jesus, like you said, rogue prophet, bad prophet. And you came
He
up with
knew
that idea, and
he knows all the secrets. Like in the prophets, like with Kevin, for example, he's the one who knew about the angel and demon tablets.
right.
So you just make it where Jesus, as the prophet, knows about some secret artifact that gives him like a shit ton of power and
No,
puts him on
no.
the level of God.
What you do? No, you make it so he's trying to steal God's power.
Or that.
Then that way you remove Chuck from the equation and have it where he's slowly siphoning God's power, and then you can have the episodes where he appears and they fight him and they lose, whatever. And he's slowly stealing Chuck's power, and then gets to the end of the season and he has Chuck's power, and then you could still have what happens with Jack, have Jack come in and whatever, and have him save the day and have the show end the way it does with what happens to Jack. What happens? I'm not going to give away because you haven't seen it. But yeah, you can still have that, and instead of having it where God's just evil, although what happens to Chuck is really satisfying, I will say that. But still, it's really, yeah, I just didn't like that turn. But apparently, according to Jared Padalecki, it's coming back. What is next? Oh, real quickly, we talked about last week. We talked about the Freaky Friday.
Oh yeah, the remake or whatever.
The remake,
sequel.
yeah. And apparently, they said some of said what some of the plot details are going to be. Apparently, it's going to introduce. Yeah, it's exactly what you predicted. Lindsay Lohan's character comes back. She has an adult. She's an adult. She has a 14-year-old daughter named Harper. And yeah, it's pretty much exactly what we said. It literally, it's Anna is the granddaughter is upset because Anna, who is long time single, is going to get married to some British guy named Eric. And Eric will also have a daughter who is not like Anna's daughter. And yeah, they will be included in the body swap shenanigans. And they're swapping. And Jamie Lee Curtis is apparently gonna swap. I think personally, this may be a controversial opinion. I know we're doing Freaky Friday too. I don't think Jamie Lee Curtis should swap.
I mean, I gotta be honest. I don't think she really needs to be in the movie.
No. I'm cool with her being there. I'm cool with her being there. But I think she should be like, she should just be herself. But like, she's like the wise and expert who has to help them out of the body swap scenario. Like she's like in on what's going on, and that way you don't have to. We could just bypass the like them acting weird part of it and just get right to the lesson. Like she's like yeah, or maybe she's the one who causes the body swap.
I mean, that'd be interesting.
Like she's the one who causes the body swap. That'd be kind of fun. And then finally, apparently they're making Velma season 2.
Really, that's bold.
I know, that surprised me. I was like, really?
Like I didn't. I didn't. Okay, I didn't watch the show. It was apparently it was bad. It was
I thought
bad.
you watched the first episode.
I don't think so. I don't think I did.
I thought you watched the first when they had the first 2 episodes on Crave. I thought you said you watched the first 2 and you're like, yeah, it's bad. I don't think I'm going to watch any more of this.
If I did, I've blocked it out of my memory and choose not to remember.
I didn't watch any of it. I didn't have a single bit of interest.
It just looked bad from the get go.
It looks bad, yeah.
But that's bold. That's a bold choice, considering how pretty universally hated it was by every person on this planet, except for Mindy Kaling, the person that made it.
Right. Sorry, I took a mouthful of ice. Here's my question. Is it fixable? And what would you do to fix it? Because I know what I would do.
No, I don't think it is.
I do. If they just do that.
But if pressed into, certainly I would bring in Scooby-Doo so that the show actually has the proper cast. And I then would recast Mindy Kaling and pretty much every person.
No, see, this is what I would do. Okay, hard turn to that. I would just do that. I would just do that.
I don't think it's fixable.
I would just do that YouTube short. If I were to fix it, I would just do that YouTube short where it turns out that Scooby-Doo is an eldritch god who's been constantly resetting them.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, that right.
And,
yeah, that'll.
And I would literally just do. I would do like where it's like a murder mystery where characters are dying, and like literally just do that, but like long form series version of it where it's like things are blinking in and out. Velma's like she keeps seeing flashes of old Scooby-Doo shit. She's like slowly losing her mind, and then at the end of the season, I do introduce Scooby-Doo at the beginning of the season where it's like he's there. And like, she's like, I have this dog, and then go through the season where it's like things keep blinking and everything is all surreal, and like everything keeps flashing to different versions of Scooby Doo, and then end it where it's like he's an eldritch god who's been constantly trying. Because then I would do that, and I would tie it into
Mystery
The Mystery
Incorporated.
Inc. one, yeah, where he's like, yeah, be like, yeah, he isn't actually a god and he's slowly gone mad since then. I would do that.
I mean, that would be dope, but they would never do
Oh,
that.
absolutely, they would never. But I mean, who knows? I mean, it will be
No, no,
interesting to see if they.
I mean, these people, like the people making this show, they like what they made.
I mean, sure, but also TV executives exist and course correction exists. So I could see there's a chance. That's why I kept it in here. I'm like, there's a chance that
That they saw that short and how well it was received.
Oh
Because
God, no, 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 no. I'm not. No, I don't think
that
those.
was that was very popular and very well
I
received.
mean, I mean, okay. I should say there is always a chance that somebody at Warner Brothers saw that, but Warner Brothers isn't really much for listening to their audience right now. Otherwise, we would
That's
have
true.
seen that Coyote movie. Um,
That's
but
true.
no, what I was gonna not the seeing that short, but the course correction. I could see them trying to course correct for the worse or better. Like the TV shows are known for that, so I could see them trying to fix what everyone hated about the last season. I don't think they will, but I could see it. It's certainly possible.
I
Um,
could also see them stubbornly staying the course.
wait, like the Julia Child? Huh? I did not know that. Sorry. Anyway, that was the news. Jordan did the news theme song.
Stop!
Stop! Stop! Stop! Stop! Stop! Stop! Stop! It's actually do that again. You know what? It's getting better. I lied. I lied. Now every time I say it's not getting better, that was a little better. It was a little better. That was a little better. No,
We tried something
I'm
different
kidding.
there.
I'm pulling the rug out from under you. It was bad, Jordan. It was still bad.
Oh,
No, I'm kidding. It
that
wasn't.
hurts.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. It's getting better. It's getting better. Maybe we'll record it one day. Who knows? I don't know. Nobody knows.
And you'll just have a voice recorder and just press it.
And you're gonna be like, I could just make it. Nope, no, this is better. This is better. Anyway, with that, we move into the sponsorship section of the episode. And this week we are sponsored by. I think we're just gonna do one. We're just gonna do one. This week we're sponsored by, and we could thank our sponsor. Jordan, let me ask you a question, Jordan. Let me ask you a question. Let's say that, maybe you wanted to go to, I don't know, let's say Australia, and go to the Australian Zoo. And you wanted to see all the Bob Irwin and his sister, the other one. How would you do that, Jordan? How would you accomplish such a feat?
I mean, I would contact a trained professional travel consultant, Flight Center by Susan.
Yes, absolutely. Flight Center by Susan. You can click the link in our description, and that will take you to her, and you tell her that we sent you, and she, let's say you want a vacation, you want to go on a vacation, but you don't want the stress, you don't want the difficulty. She can do so much, okay? She can book cruises, she can book flights, she can book hotels, she can book travel packages, and if you book over a certain price limit, you will get incentivization. She will send you a gift card that you can help her pick out. You can have her pick it for you, or you can give her an idea. Recently, for one of her bookings, she sent someone a Tim Hortons gift card. If you're Canadian, she can do that for you. But the important part is she takes all the stress of traveling off of your shoulders. So all you have to do is just let her tell you where to go. And she's really good at that. She's helped us. We've worked with her before to go on plenty of vacations, and she makes it as stress-free as she possibly can. She will go that extra mile for you, so you don't have to. She will do that, and she doesn't charge a fee. She doesn't charge a fee. Very important. And she will do all that for you. So, again, go to the link in the description. Flight Center by Susan. Check her out. On with the show, Jordan?
On with the show, Justin.
On with the show. So, it's rapid fire time, Jordan. It's rapid
80s
fire.
and 90s, baby!
Yeah, we're in the 80s and 90s this week. I did the 90s, Jordan did the 80s. We're going to be talking about some stuff. Has a theme. Because I ended up just watching shit from my childhood because I was a child in the 90s. So I just picked all the stuff I liked because nobody suggested anything that I wouldn't like. I loved everything I watched this week. Maybe I didn't finish one of the things, but
I had a good time.
You know what? Since the 80s is first round, what is your first rapid fire?
I watched E.T.
E.T. Phone Home.
E.T. Phone Home. That movie is good, and it's fun, and
It's also upsetting.
It gets upsetting, and it gets sad, and Overall, it's enjoyable.
Yeah, when he leaves at the end, I got a little bit. I was like, oh, I'm getting a little, I'm feeling a little bit of the vapors. I'm
I
getting a
mean,
little
the
misty.
scene
Oh,
the scene where the people the government has caught them and he's like I'm like I mean that's a you're being a little bit like dial it back down to like a nine
that movie
maybe
was
you know like
funny. That movie was funny because it's definitely one of those like, and that happened a few times with some of my stuff where it's like, as a kid, you're like, yeah, the evil government bad guys come in and are like hurting ET. But as an adult, you're like, man, he's just a guy doing the best he can. They're not specifically out to hurt ET. They're there to like, he's trying his
I
best to
mean
help. He's not
they
really.
they they they're not trying to kill him. They want him alive so they can perform experiments on him while he's alive later in a lab.
Yeah, but I mean, the one government guy when he comes in, he's
The
trying to
one
help.
government
He's
guy
not a
actually
bad
seems to
guy.
care,
Yeah.
but the rest of them are just there to experiment on
I
ET.
mean, my favorite part about ET is always going to be how, yeah, he's this being of accomplishing, and it's the same thing with Steven Spielberg, with other Steven Spielberg, other movie, the Close Encounters of the Third Kind, where it's like they're these beings who are capable of traveling over vast quantities of space and can. And have achieved a feat that human beings have not achieved and are theoretically way smarter than we are, but haven't formed out basic communication amongst primitive species. Like, we pretty much just treat ET like a house cat. Like,
Well, to be in the children's defense, he does purr.
I mean, he does kind of act like a house
The
cat.
subtitles literally describe it as purring. He is purring.
That's fun. That's funny. Anything. That's funny. Anything else that you have to say about ET?
Uh, it spawned an infamous video game that has entire landfills filled with it.
Yes, that was thought to be a myth for a very long time, and it turns out it was true.
That's just a fun bit of trivia. But other than that, I think it's your turn.
Uh,
What you got for me? Hit me.
my first one was Jurassic Park. I watched
Ooh,
Jurassic.
that's a good
I
one.
watched the first Jurassic Park, and yeah, that movie's good. Still holds
That's a
up.
good one.
And very, very interesting fact about that movie that I learned was that did you know that initially all the effects in that movie were going to be done by stop motion, and
Really?
yeah, they did all of it in stop motion, and the person came in and they had done like test animatics using the CGI, and I think it was Kathleen Kennedy came in and was like, "What is this?" And they decided to go with the CGI instead because it looked better, it looked more realistic. But they
The
still had
practic, the practical, you mean, not
no,
CGI.
no. The like the because there are CGI bits in there. Like it's not all practical. So like the scenes with like the raptors and whatever, that's CGI. Um,
Huh,
and so
interesting.
they used when they were doing the animatics though they did end up using the stop motion for the animatics. So there's animatics of it being stop motion.
I mean, to be fair, the dinosaurs in that movie most of them should have more feathers, so
Yeah, I mean
it's not like they're exactly accurate.
and then the T Rex in the rain it broke multiple times because it was raining obviously. And yeah, that movie still looks good.
But it
Um,
looks
Yeah,
fantastic.
it is. It genuinely is. I thoroughly that movie scared the pants off of me as a child. I so
Oh yeah,
thoroughly enjoyed it.
they're terrifying looking. Some of them, like apparently, on set while they were making it, some of the people like working there were terrified by the T Rex and stuff
Yeah,
because it looked that realistic.
even though that's not what T Rexes look like, but
I mean, it still looks scary.
it still looks scary. So yeah, that was it. What's your next one?
Well, my next one is an important question here is who are you gonna call?
I mean Ghostbusters. You
Exactly.
call the Ghostbusters.
We're gonna call the Ghostbusters. Um, it's a movie which is fine.
Did you watch the Jordan? You watched the only good Ghostbusters movie, right? You didn't watch any of the other ones.
The other ones weren't from the 80s, I don't think. Maybe the second was. I don't remember. I ran out of time. Anyway, I only watched the first one.
I feel like the second one did come out in the 80s.
I'm too lazy to look it up, and I don't know offhand, and I'm not confident enough to say either way, and I don't want the internet to lambaste me for not just knowing. So we're gonna just smile, nod, and say it's Schrodinger's Ghostbusters. It both does and doesn't exist in the 80s.
But yeah, no, it's the only good one. It's in my opinion anyway. It's the only good one. It's the only one that understands that it's like, yeah, the Ghostbusters aren't meant to be this weird special. It's just like five guys who are effectively just exterminators, just doing a regular job. And it was just that was like
I
lightning in a bottle, right moment, right time in history kind of movies.
I remember not minding the second one, but the first one is really, I mean, he's the gatekeeper, she's the key, no, she's the gatekeeper, he's the key master. There's a lot of funny jokes in there. Bill Murray's character is a creep.
Yep.
It's
Why?
it's a good
Why does
time.
he just have
We got
that drug to use for drugging people on him? It's weird. What was he gonna do?
You've got ghost ghoulies, you got cool technology,
Dan
you've
Aykroyd's
got
getting a ghost blowjob.
you got a member of the Environment Protection Agency who's an idiot, which is pretty par for the course, as I
I
understand.
mean, the movie treats him like he's an idiot, but he actually makes very reasonable points.
Sure, but then proceeds to shut down the thing that's keeping all the ghosts in and cause the problem.
I mean, that's fair, but also what he wasn't wrong. It was a very dangerous thing to have just in the middle of the season. He was
He's not wrong.
hashtag
They
justice for
didn't
EPA guy.
they didn't have a safety switch, but you know.
I don't know why I'm so thirsty today.
I don't know why you are either, but the important thing is that that's what I watched, Ghostbusters. What is your next pick, sir?
For me, I think we talked. Did we talk about Fern Gully on here before? I watched Fern Gully, and
I think that was one of my picks in the past.
was it the thing about Fern Gully? Now that to offer an alternative point to it,
Because I do remember coming in and being like, his name is Batty.
oh yeah,
His bastard is a ratty.
oh yeah. That movie's funny because nothing really happens in it for most of it until the very. It's just kind of like you're just kind of waiting for the bad guy to show up. But yeah, what's his face?
The music is good though,
The music is good. Oh, I had a thing.
and it's heavy-handed.
It's heavy-handed. We didn't learn the lesson, which I thought was funny. Oh, Tim Curry. Tim Curry is really great in it. He's great in every. He's one of those like he elevates. He's having like
He's prolific.
yeah. He never has a bad time making a movie, and that's no exception. He's having a great time. Robin Williams. It just kind of seems like it's weird. It's funny to me that was the movie he had the more passion for because it just kind of seems like they put him in a studio and just showed him the animation and had him just say random words because there's so much of that movie, so much of his character in that movie is incoherent. Like he's just saying like things and you can't see his lip flaps and you could tell they just spliced or they edited in just takes of him saying shit that had nothing to do with anything, and there's no structure to his character.
To be fair, to be fair, I think that's what they did with the genie as well. It's just Disney clearly has more of a budget to be able to.
Yeah, I guess it's like his character is not. It just kind of seems like he just showed up on the day. It doesn't seem to have as much passion for it, in my opinion, as he did for the genie. But I don't know. There was one more thing I had to say about Fern Gully.
That it's cute.
I mean, it's gonna start off a theme where the '90s wasn't afraid to be upsetting. It wasn't afraid to like traumatize children.
Neither was the '80s, to be fair.
Oh, and a question. A big point. I'm gonna let you go to your next one, but this is sort of the start of an overall theme for the next few ones of mine, where it's like, the next few movies I'm gonna talk about don't make any sense. Like they don't make any sense. I'm gonna. It's a prologue to what's coming. And a big criticism. I hate whenever like a person's like, this kid's movie didn't make any sense. And then the person responds with, "Well, it's a kids' movie. It's not. What do you mean? They're not supposed to make sense." But every movie should make sense. Every movie should have a sense of logic to it. This movie
should follow its own internal logic anyway.
Yeah, Fern Gully makes sense. It's a short movie, but it explains everything you need to understand. It explains what these things are, what the bad guy is, where he comes from, what he wants, and the structure of it makes total sense from beginning to end. What is your next pick? Or your next rapid fire?
Follow That Bird, the Sesame Street Big Bird movie.
Oh yeah, that movie's upsetting.
That movie, it holds up, and it is upsetting when you think about the fact that he is supposed to be 6 years old, and there's a portion in the movie where these two thugs who run a scam carnival, lock him in a cage and force him to perform for them.
I mean, the bit where
This this
he's singing that Bluebird song and it's like the
that's what
paint
that's the
starts to
kind of movie I'm talking
oh
about.
my god, it's
Where it's
legit
like
upsetting. It's
it's
like
horrifying when you think about the fact that Big Bird is supposed to be 6 years old, and these two fully grown adults lock him in a cage and force him to perform so they can make money.
I mean, that movie is ultimately even more upsetting when that movie skews way too old for a Sesame Street movie, in my opinion. Like that movie skews
Little
for
bit.
like Sesame Street, and hey, maybe I'm wrong, but Sesame Street, in my opinion, skews for like 2 to 3 year olds, whereas that movie skews for like 7 to 8 year olds.
I would have said 3 to 4, but yeah, this feels more. This feels less like Sesame Street because Sesame Street always seemed like the Muppets' little brother.
Yeah, yeah,
Where it's like it was for the younger portion, whereas this very much feels more like a Muppet movie
yeah. With the Sesame Street characters, well,
with the
with big,
Sesame Street characters, because you've also got Oscar the Grouch, like you've got all the other ones there. Bert and Ernie are flying in the plane. You've got the
that is true.
Count, like they're all there. Cookie Monster is there. You've got the human characters who one thing I will say is the characters in this movie sing very well.
Yeah,
There's this section where the singer Waylon Jennings, who I guess he was a big star or a big
big country star.
music
Yeah,
artist, who it means nothing to me,
yeah.
but I like that song. Um, but no, yeah, it's an enjoyable movie. It's very
That
cute.
that
It's
was
got a lot of
funny.
fun moments.
The thing about Muppet movies that are always funny is picking out the like they always do that moment where like they'll have a celebrity cameo and it'll stop and do like so you can recognize the celebrity
Yeah.
cameo. And it's always funny to me when it's like, oh, that person must have been like the Muppet Show was funny for that because there was like maybe one every 4 or 5 episodes I recognized an actor or an actress, but it was mostly just like, oh yeah, this person was clearly famous in the 1970s. I have no idea who they are, but
The one, the one thug, not the main one, but the sidekick. He looked familiar to me, and I was too lazy to look it up, so I don't know if this is true.
I
But he looked like he was the actor from Dumb and Dumber.
I no, I don't think it's Jeff Daniels. You're taxing my memory, but I'm pretty sure
I'll look it up later, but that's
it's
when I saw him. When I saw him, that's who he made me think of.
yeah, no, and again, I'm not, no, he's I can't think of what his actual name is. I can only think of characters he's played. And I don't know if you know the characters. You know Bob and Doug McKenzie?
Not by name.
Bob and Doug McKenzie. Thomas something. He's one of the moose in Brother Bear.
Okay, yeah.
I think it's him. I think, but I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that's him. But that movie's upsetting, and it's crazy to me that it came out after the Muppet movie. I always thought it came out before the Muppet movie. I was positive it came out before the Muppet movie because it was like Sesame Street was way more successful. If in fact Bert and Ernie show up in like season 1 of the Muppet Show to be like, yeah, we're from Sesame Street, the much more successful, popular show. So it's just wild to me that it took them so like legit, like I'm not even joking. And so it's just wild to me that they took them so. I guess because it was like eventually they did Sesame Street movies that were a bit more like, yeah, these are movies for 3 year olds, like the
Elmo and Grouchland,
yeah,
I
Elmo
think
and
was one.
Grouchland. Yeah. That one's weird because if you watch it, it has the budget of a theatrical movie. And I remember it going to theaters because I think at one point I wanted to watch it, and I got dissuaded by people who were like, "You're too old to watch an Elmo movie." And now I'm like, "Fuck it, who cares?"
I watch quote unquote kids movies all the time. Who
Yeah.
cares?
Now I can't because I think Elmo's insufferable. Occasionally insufferable. A lot of times he's funny. Like his beef with Rocco the Rock is funny. I guess it's me now, isn't it? My next
It
one
is you.
is another forest related one in Once Upon a Forest. And I tried to find it before we talk about
Once Upon a Forest. Which one is Once Upon a Forest?
that's the one where it's, oh, do you not remember that one? Oh, I have to describe Once Upon a Forest. Okay, I'll explain it once.
I feel like once you do it, it'll immediately come to me.
Yeah.
It's just by name. I'm
Um,
like, which one? There's a lot of forest ones. You're gonna have to.
I'll describe it, but the funny bit about this was the reason why I watched it was because our friends at the our friends at the Average Intelligence podcast, they had a short, or I think it was them. It was either them or just an RT Media one, but they had a short or a TikTok where it was Jake and he was talking about how he remembered Once Upon a Forest being a good movie, and then he went back and rewatched it, and it turned out it was a very bad movie, and I was gonna stitch it and be like, I initially was gonna be like, you're so wrong. That was a good movie. I remember that movie being good, and then I watched it, and it's not a good movie. In fact, a very bad movie. And I couldn't find it on TikTok to stitch it, and I was like, rats. But no, this is not a very good movie. It's wild. It's confusing. It doesn't make any sense. It's the one where it's the furlings, and it's all the little kid animals, and they go to school with the badger guy.
They're making the flying
The
machine.
flying machine, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It's
Okay.
furlings.
I couldn't remember if that's what that one was called or if that was a
Rheumatism.
different one. But yeah. Okay. Yeah. I know exactly.
It's one that's where I say like, it doesn't make any sense. These movies stop making these movies just don't make any sense in the 90s. Like, so all these animal creatures all wear clothes, and you're like, okay, so they're magical, like anthropomorphic like animal creatures. No, you then see that they're a human. Okay, sorry. For those of you who haven't seen Once Upon a Forest, very quickly, it's about these little animal creatures who they accidentally get poisoned by humans, by a poison truck. Their little village gets poisoned, and one of them gets sick, and the rest of the kids have to go off on an adventure to find medicine materials to save one of their friends. That's it. That's the plot. And you're like, oh, okay, so they all wear clothes and are anthropomorphic. So you're like, okay, so they're like magical animal creatures. But no, they get poisoned by humans, like regular sized humans. Like the humans are giant and they speak English, and the animals don't understand, so they have weird names for regular human things. So you're like, okay, so is it like, are they like regular animals, and like we're just seeing them as being magical clothes wearing creatures? And you're like, maybe, but then no, because later in the movie they get attacked by like a regular bird. He's just a regular owl. He tries to attack and eat them, and he's the regular size of an owl. He's a big owl. And so you're like, oh, okay. So is it just like the kids who are like wearing clothes, and it's like just these animals that wear clothes? And then you're like, no, because then you see later there are all these birds who are like in a church service, like doing this funeral for this little kid bird. So like, okay, so is it just that bird that's not normal? I don't understand. This movie doesn't make any sense. Also,
is it like based on size, where it's like the bigger you get, the dumber you get? Like,
it doesn't make because humans speak regular English. It doesn't make any sense. And the bird doesn't speak English. He's just making regular bird sounds. Yeah, pretty much, yeah. And then later on they meet a squirrel who's just racist. His whole thing is he just says really like prejudiced things about the other animals. He's like, "Oh, you're a mole. Moles are really cowardly." And whatever, and then he's like, "Oh yeah, you're a mouse. I wouldn't expect that from a mouse." He's like, "Whoa, the squirrel's just racist. Like, it's not cool." And yeah, it just doesn't make any sense. And then it's funny because like the other thing that '90s movies I kind of noticed about '90s animated movies is like they really didn't trust kids to have an attention span. They really didn't, because all of these movies are less than 90 minutes. One of the ones I'm going to talk about is an hour and 4 minutes. So they were like in and out. These movies don't have time for anything like characters or character development or like story. Don't have time for that. They gotta hurry this along.
We gotta get this going, man.
Yeah. The only one good like actor in this movie is the guy playing. I guess he's a famous actor. I'm not gonna say his name because you wouldn't know, but I looked him up. He's apparently famous. He plays the Badger, and he sings a horrid song where he's out of tune the whole time. And I was like, oh my god, this movie's terrible. But he is in it, man. He's putting in the best performance. The most interesting about this movie is, do you remember the mole who wore glasses, and then at the end of the movie, the like there's that really upsetting scene where the humans like take off his clothes and he's just naked in the trap.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I remember that.
he's played by the kid who played Brian in Alf, Brian Tanner.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Interesting.
and this is like
Small world.
one of three things he's done. He did this, he did Alf, and he did like one other thing. And that's it.
Hmm,
I know,
interesting.
random. But anyway, that's Once Upon a Forest. It was a bad movie that thankfully was quite short.
So, my next one is Gremlins.
I don't like
Um,
Gremlins. I've never liked
I
Gremlins.
I I sort of became aware as I was watching this. I don't think I watched Gremlin 1 a lot. I think we watched Gremlin 2 because I remember there being a smart talking gremlin, which
Yeah,
I'm he's not in this one, so he must be in the second one.
we
Um,
liked the second one. We liked the second one. We've seen the second. You are thinking of the second one. That's from the second one. I owned the book for the second one, because it had the cover of the one gremlin smoking a cigar on it.
it's like I think in the second one they lean into the silliness more,
Yeah.
whereas this is very much like it's a horror movie.
Yes, it's technically a horror comedy, but yes, yeah, yeah. I
Uh,
remember renting the first one and hating it, just hating it because it was upsetting.
it's it exists.
Yeah,
It has cute moments with Mogwai.
yeah.
But
Like it's one of those ones where, yeah, very definitely. I've never liked Gremlins, even as a kid. I've never liked Gremlins. That's why whenever they're like, "Oh, we're bringing it back," I'm like they brought back like a cartoon, I think, with Mowgli, where I was like, yeah, not interested. No, thank you.
it just kind of was like a weird Furby. That's what it
Yeah,
made me think of.
yeah, definitely. I can see why you would say that. But yeah, I'm never. I think Gremlins 2 is in the '90s. I think I could have watched Gremlins 2. But even in retrospect, I don't like Gremlins 2 all that much.
Yeah, I mean,
I know I've seen it.
yeah.
I know we watched it a bunch as kids, and I think maybe you liked it more than me because I don't. I rewatched it once and recently, and I was like, I don't like this movie.
I don't. Yeah, I mean, there's one more point where it's like, where the teacher or whatever who has the one of the evil gremlins when it's still furry in the cage, and he's drawing blood from it and doing experiments on it, and I'm like, this feels wrong.
Right?
Like, just morally, you you're subjecting this creature to like experiments and stuff. It just, I don't know. It's yeah. It's a movie which exists, and I watched it. So what's your next pick?
Homeward Bound.
I have one more after this.
I have I have one more after this as well.
That
Homeward
worked out.
Homeward Bound. I watched Homeward
Oh,
Bound.
oh, so you want it to be sad?
Yeah, that movie is manipulative, and it's really funny because it's like it tries to be sad at moments where it's too late. It's too late. You can't do the dog's about to die. It's too late in the movie for that. I'm sorry. And that movie was very funny because I learned a bit from it. I didn't know it was a remake. First of all, I remembered that there was another. Well, okay, I should say I knew that there was another version of this. I didn't know that it was a remake because I remember there seeing a cover of a Homeward Bound or something. It was like The Incredible Journey or The Incredible something, and it had a different name, but it was the exact same movie. It was just with different animals, and I was like, oh, so now I know. Yeah, this is a remake of that, and it's funny because I learned that there are like 6 of each animal, so there's like 6 Cassie, 6 whatever, and they never shot together. So they never just for the animal's safety, they never had the animals shoot together. So once you know that, you see like, oh, there's a shot of the dog and there's a cut, and there's a shot of the dog and you notice, yeah, there's a lot of times where they're not in the same scene together. They're not in the
That's
same room
funny.
together. Yeah. And it made me wonder when I was watching it how much of the voice acting for that was they just had certain ones where they just had them act like regular dogs, and they just how much of the dialogue of the animals was scripted, and how much they just have like the
Have the
actors
person react to what the dogs were doing.
pretty much like improv based on what the dogs were doing in the footage. It made me wonder
I
that.
could I could I could believe that it was a lot of improv.
I also never that's another example of one where you're like, as a kid you're like, oh, the people at the shelter are bad and get away dogs, and but as a kid you're like, no, they're helping the dogs, like these are the good guys, these are the guys who
Sometimes.
when you see those sappy when you see the sappy, like there's a moment where the guy's trying to pull the porcupine quills out of Chance's face, and it's like, yeah, he's that guy in that sappy like TikTok video where it's got the sappy music and you see the sad dog and they're rescuing them. Like they're those guys. This is, you know, normally you see the other side of this. Oh, this is what this is like from the animal's perspective. They don't understand that the people are being helpful, and it's just funny how as a kid you kind of miss that.
Right. Right.
Also, there's a lot of like that cat died. There's no way that cat lived from that.
I mean, in the credits, does it say these animals were not, or no animals were harmed in the production of the?
Yes, it did. Because fun fact, you know the movie Milo and Otis?
I'm aware of it.
That movie is the reason that warning exists. Because they killed a lot of dogs and cats during the production of that movie.
That's upsetting.
Yep. They didn't. There's a scene where one of the cats goes. I think it's either one of the cats or one of the dogs goes off of a waterfall, and I don't think they've ever confirmed it or like said whether or not it's true, but allegedly, we don't want to get sued. Allegedly, the dog died going over that waterfall. They just didn't care.
That's upsetting.
That's now that I've said all of this as if it is true, I could be completely wrong about it. But I'm reasonably certain that was Milo and Otis. That was the reason why the Humane Society now has that warning.
I couldn't say for sure.
Oh no, I lied. I do have one more, but it's a I haven't seen, so we'll do it at the top of the haven't seen.
Okay.
Yeah, because I have like one thing to say about it. I don't have it. I have more to say about the other two, but it's something worth saying. Anyway, that was Homeward Bound.
My last rapid fire is a bit of a cheat because I hadn't seen it, but I've seen so many versions of the story that it's like I'm choosing to put it under rapid
Close
fire.
enough.
And that's Die Hard, the first Die Hard. I had never seen the first Die Hard before, but I had seen the first Die Hard before because I've seen shows like Archer where they did Die Hard. I've seen enough shows where they just did Die Hard that it's like I've seen Die Hard.
I mean, we for our Christmas special you did a movie where it was Santa Claus does a Die Hard, and that's one of our first shorts is me going, Santa Claus does a Die Hard. So you've seen Die Hard if you have.
I've seen Die Hard. I just haven't seen Die Hard.
I've seen there's that episode of Cleveland Show where they it's literally just Die Hard.
Or the episode of What If where it's just Die Hard.
Happy Hogan does a Die Hard.
Anyways, I watched Die Hard. And it's always weird seeing Bruce Willis with a full head of hair.
Right.
Also some of the hairstyles that like the wife, for example, McClane's wife, is just so 80s.
Yep, a lot of the wardrobe in that movie is very 80s.
It's so in the best way. I love it. It's hilarious. Hans Gruber, what's his name? Snape. Alan Rickman.
Thank you.
Took my brain a second to get there. He's fantastic in it. Like, he's great. It's a really good movie. There's a reason why it's so loved.
Right.
It's a good movie. It's simple. It's tight. It's not. It's just it's fun. I'm interested. Maybe one day I'll watch the second one. I couldn't because it wasn't in the 80s, but one day I'll maybe watch the second and third one. But yeah, no, I did. Jordan did a Die Hard.
Jordan did a high, and so it's funny. I realized for my final rapid fire, I said I hadn't picked any bad ones, and then I remembered that my final rapid fire is the Super Mario Brothers movie, the first one, obviously, because that one came out in the 90s. And maybe that's because, and this may be a hot take, I don't think that's necessarily a bad movie. Don't throw tomatoes at me.
Uh, uh,
Because it's really
uh,
funny. I thought about it. Because I don't recall when I watched that as a kid thinking it was a bad movie. I don't recall thinking it was. It wasn't until I developed the ability to define what a bad movie is that I was like, yeah, it's not a very good movie. But I don't think it's a bad movie. Honestly, I don't think it's a bad movie. I think part of it is because I see it as kind of like when we were kids, we had that the blank the movie, where it was like you took the TV show or you took a thing and you made the movie version of it. And the movie version of it was always bigger for the sake of being bigger. It had higher stakes for no reason. So like, I mean, we talked about like the Jetsons movie, or like the example I thought of was like the Recess movie, where now it's the Recess, but the world is at stake because the world needs to be at stake for it to be a movie. Like it's one of
I
those
mean,
where it's like it's
one of
this.
one of my movies is one of those. So I get what you're
Um,
saying.
where it's like, yeah, the it needs to be serious, and it's funny because there's enough references to Mario in there, and they're fun, and they're like, yeah, if you were to interpret like the reason why I think if you made the Super Mario Brothers movie today and you maybe put a bit more of a Mario coat of paint on it, people would call it brilliant. And the reason why I know that is because there is that trailer that they did for SNL where it was like, what if we did Mario but it was The Last of Us, and everyone called it fucking brilliant. So I'm like, this movie is just ahead of its time. Like if someone had made like dystopian Mario today, people would think it was super brilliant. And it's
So uh, okay. Here's what I'm gonna say. I don't dislike the movie as a
no,
movie.
as a movie
I
it's
don't.
fine.
I don't like it as a Mario
Yeah, it's a
movie,
bad
but
adaptation.
as a movie in and of itself, it has flaws. It has things that could be punched up or tuned up a little bit, but it's a pretty standard B movie. B
Yeah.
movie? I don't know
Yeah,
B
it's
movie,
absolutely. It's a
but
great B movie, and like it's funny because
um
there's more references to Mario than you realize. Like for example, there's a point where you see one of the restaurants in the background is called Bullet Bills. So like
yeah,
there's fun references in there.
like I would say that like it's if they had marketed it less as like it's the Mario movie, like based on the video game, and more like it's like a parody, like it's the blood and honey, Winnie the Pooh blood and honey for Mario, if that
Yeah,
makes sense. Like it's like a parody of what Mario actually is. It's the gritty, realistic version. It's
yeah,
not meant to be like
yeah,
Mario as you know him, but it's like what if you took Mario? It's your standard. What if you took cartoon and made it
yeah,
realistic?
exactly. And my thing is like, if
Which it's like, yeah, does it miss the point on certain things? Yeah, but if you make it so that's the point,
yeah, well, what's funny to me is like that one came out 20 years ago. Oh, and also it's funny. You're like, people are like, oh, how did Nintendo let this happen? Because Nintendo didn't care. Nintendo quote thought that the Mario brand was strong enough to withstand anything, end quote.
and they were wrong.
And they were so wrong. And they claim, and Shigeru Miyamoto has come out and said that he likes this movie and he thinks that it's fine. But clearly it wasn't fine because it scared them out of making a movie based on their products for literal years. And it's funny because I maintain, it's funny to me that this last one came out and so many people shat all over the newest one because they were like, it's too much thing I recognize. It's too much thing I know. And it's like, but that's what you bitched about the last one not being enough of. So maybe if they swapped and the thing you recognize one came out first, this one came out second, this one maybe would have been received better. And yeah, I think if as a Mario adaptation, no, it's not very good. It's all right. I think it's better than people make it out to be. But just as a movie, I think it's fine as a movie. Like I like John Leguizamo in there. I like Mario. It's clearly before Mario and Luigi had any sort of characterization because Mario's the cowardly one and Luigi's the brave one. But Yeah, I didn't hate it. I didn't think it was that bad.
Like the reason why I think it would work today, maybe not exactly as it is, but a version of this would work today is because you have a live action quote unquote a movie that has live action elements. Sonic movie.
I mean, that's a live action movie. It's a live action movie with animated
Yeah,
elements. But yes, I get what your point is.
yeah. Because like my point is like because you have movies like that which are successful, I think you could do a version of that with Mario,
I think you
which
could. I don't. I mean, I don't want
which is
that,
what
but you could.
this movie was. The reason why this movie doesn't work in the 90s is because really it was there was nothing like it.
Yeah.
Real other than maybe like Mortal Kombat, but like that was a serious subject which you could do, right?
Also,
Like
video games in terms of their cultural presence are completely different in the '90s, right?
that's
Mario
also true.
Mario isn't known as this colorful. Like this movie comes out, I think it not before the cartoons do, but certainly like he's not as present as a colorful kind of character. So that's where it's like, yeah, now where it's like we've had 20 years of the bright, colorful, fun Mario. Now it's like as a palate cleanser, yeah, maybe the dystopian Mario theoretically could work as a parody if you do it. This wasn't intentionally a parody. This was supposed to be
No,
serious, but
that's why I say yeah. If you do it as a parody
yeah,
now, I think it could work.
so have you heard some of the quotes from Bob Hoskins about making it, where he was like, it was made by a couple who who substituted being right for talent. Um, he called it a fucking nightmare. I think the guy who played Bowser, I think it was I can't remember which of them, but it might have been the guy who played Bowser. His son asked him why he made that horrible movie. Why did you make that horrible Mario movie? And he said, because son, you need shoes. And his son responded with, I don't need shoes that badly.
That's hilarious.
Um, but yeah, okay, that's Mario. That's I guess that's it for rapid fire. That's all the rapid fire we have.
That's all I have. I don't
That's
know
all the
about
rapid.
you.
That's it for me. I have one more, but it's one I hadn't seen, and I guess if you did one you hadn't seen, I might as well. I'll do one more. I watched Tommy Boy. Well, I didn't watch all of Tommy Boy. I started Tommy Boy last night. I fell asleep. I wanted to watch Drop Dead Fred, and I was like, oh, maybe I can squeeze in the rest of Tommy Boy, and I ran out of time. So I've seen exactly half of Tommy Boy. But it was enough to kind of make my point, which is, you've probably never seen Tommy Boy, but are you familiar with it by name?
I I've never heard of it.
Okay, it's you know who Chris Farley is?
Probably.
Van Down by the River.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, it's basically his one of like he made like 4 movies, and it's one of the ones where he's the star. It's him and David Spade and Chris Farley. His dad is a rich guy in charge of a. It's Billy Madison, not really, but he's in charge of an auto parts company, and he dies, and it's about Chris Farley essentially trying to like save the family business or whatever. But it's supposed to be a comedy, and it's a lot of like the shit he does on SNL, where it's like him screaming and funny fat man fall down. There's a shit ton of fat phobic jokes that it's like, oh man, these are bad. But he was very famously very self-conscious about the people only ever saw him as one thing, the funny fat guy. And he didn't think that he could escape the image of being the funny fat guy. And this movie, which is supposed to be a comedy, is very sad to me because like there's stuff in it that's funny, but like it's more sad because it's like all he was a good actor. There's moments in this movie which are like genuine and like sweet and heartfelt, and he's acting like an actual person, and like he's really good. And all it makes me think is how we missed out on a Chris Farley career where he effectively should have had the same career as Adam Sandler, where he did a bunch of shitty 2000s comedies where we were like, oh, Chris Farley is terrible, and then he should have had a second part of his career when he came back, and it was like, oh, he's actually a good actor, just like Adam Sandler, and we can all be like, no, Chris Farley was always a good actor, and it's really drowned out by all these moments and all these jokes of them being like, oh, you're fat, or oh, you just fat joke after fat joke after fat joke, and him like having these moments where like he realizes he has to be the funny fat guy, and it's like he was more than that, and it makes his death of like he fed himself to death so he could continue to be the fat guy, and he combined it with drugs so he can maintain that energy that he was known for. When it was like, no, Chris, man, people just like you. And yeah, it just the movie made me more sad than it made me laugh, because I was like, it's such a tragic and unnecessary loss. We lost a great talent in Chris Farley, and yeah, that movie made me more reflective than it did than I had anything to actually say about the movie itself. So with that, that's the end of rapid fire. We'll start with Jordan. What is the first one that you had seen and the had seen? You would like to say?
Well,
the main one, I should say.
one of the first ones that I have not seen,
Had seen,
have seen rather, was Tron. He fights for the users.
He fights for the users.
It came out in 1982, which kind of blew my mind that it was that. I thought it was like late 80s, not early 80s.
I was
and when
sure
it
was late 80s.
When you if you watch it now, obviously it looks dated. But if you watch it through the lens of this came out in 82, it is a very, I mean, ahead of its time.
Oh, absolutely, it's ahead of its time. Yeah.
It's great. It's fun. It's cute. There's I'm pretty sure there's one scene where there's a Pac-Man reference, and there's another scene which I do know is 100% where there's a hidden Mickey that's in the background, which is fun to see.
That is fun.
It's a hidden Mickey Mouse head. But for those who don't know Tron, have you been living under a rock for all these years?
You'd be surprised, man. There's people out there like the one thing real quick. I mean, it's not Tron, but Tron Legacy. People didn't. I mean, I think we talked about this a few weeks ago, but people don't know.
That was a sequel.
People haven't seen. They've never heard of Tron. They didn't know that was a sequel. So absolutely, there's people out there who aren't familiar with the original Tron.
Tron, Kevin Flynn. He made video games. He gets sucked into computer. Him and Tron defeat the MCP and free the system, and then Kevin Flynn is released from the system and goes back to his world.
Yep.
That's the Cold Notes version. That's really all you need to know.
Everyone, all the computer programs look like the people in the real world.
Look like the people that made them.
Yep.
So Tron looks like the guy from the real world. Clue, when before he gets derezed, looked like Kevin Flynn.
Yep. Which is why in Tron Legacy, Clue is Clue 2. He's the second Clue.
Yeah, and he looks like Kevin Flynn.
And he looks like yeah. That's why he looks like Jeff Bridges.
But what else is there to say about it? It's from that magical time when computers were still very, very unknown and could be whatever you wanted them to be.
Yep, when the world of the internet could be whatever you wanted it to be.
And life inside the internet or life inside the computer could just be this mystical thing.
Yep.
My thing that I always kind of was wondering is like, so when they play like the arcade games, is that them actually, like, you know how in the game the MCP is sending people to the games?
Yeah.
Is he sending them to the arcade games that people are playing and fighting the people?
Isn't that a place he sends them in the movie? Does he not send them, because there's the whole sequence with the light cycles?
No, I know. I'm saying they in the computer they fight on the games.
Yeah.
Right, like they do the games, they do the light cycle. It's the games. But what I'm saying is, Flynn runs an arcade where he has the Tron games, like the ones where you fly around and stuff. Yeah. So what I'm saying is the games that the MCP is sending these people to,
I think so.
is that like the games in the arcade
Yeah,
systems and
because
stuff?
the system is in the computer and is in his arcade.
Okay, okay,
At least
okay.
that's where he gets sucked in, right? He gets sucked in the arcade.
No, he gets sucked in the Encom.
Oh, I thought he got sucked in. Oh no, I must be thinking of the second movie then. Then at that point,
You are thinking of the second movie.
then maybe, maybe. Or wait, no. Does Flint have the arcade in the first one?
Yeah.
Oh, well then. I mean, maybe. I mean, does he work at OCP or not OCP? Does he work at NCOM?
He originally did. He was the one that made all the games. Dillinger steals them, and that's the point. That's what he's trying to go into the computer to look for, is the proof to prove that Ed Dillinger stole his games and stuff, and that like
Oh,
he can get it all
right,
back.
right. It's been a while since I've
So
seen
it's
this movie
like
clearly. So,
so
so then at
it's
that
like
point, I would say no. They don't. It's not. It's the same games as the arcade, but I would say that the games are in the system already because
okay.
obviously they would have if he's stolen it, then he would have a copy of it, the data of it,
Yeah,
anyway.
that's why I was like, it was just something that I thought of.
Yeah.
But I remember at the in Burnaby, they had the Tron game
They
there,
absolutely had the Tron game there. Yeah,
where where where
the light cycle one is basically just Snake, but yeah,
yeah, it
so
is,
absolutely had the
and
Tron
yeah,
game.
it was. I remember they were all easy except for the one game which was hard.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I remember that, and I remember playing that and being like, it's the game from the game.
The thing about Tron is Tron has influenced so many things that you don't even realize that it's influenced. Like if you're Canadian, or I guess they technically had it in America, but reboot is very much Tron. It's just straight up Tron. It's
Um,
with the notable absence of there being a user that enters it, but even
yeah,
still, it's
I
more or
mean,
less just Tron.
they they literally go to the like the game cubes, which are just the game, like
Just
the
the
game.
games, yeah. Yeah, it uses all
Uh,
the same lingo. A lot of the lingo comes from Tron.
it's certainly inspired by
Oh, for
Tron, if
sure, yeah.
nothing else.
But yeah.
Um,
Again, an absolute ahead of its time in terms of special effects. It's a shame
yeah,
that it has dated so poorly because
it holds up fairly well considering it was made in '82.
Oh, I mean, yeah, that's part of the problem with with like digital special effects like that, where it will always age badly. It's just a way when you don't use practical effects. Practical effects always age better than digital effects.
But yeah, that's Tron. It's a fairly simple movie, paint by numbers.
I mean, yeah, it's fun. Definitely, the sequel's definitely better. It's one of those instances where the sequel's definitely
I
better.
mean, the sequel is what they envisioned when they made the first
For
one.
sure, yeah.
A lot of the what they're capable of doing, like what it looks like. Yeah, you could tell that was what they pictured in their head.
Yeah.
But no, that's Tron.
So,
I
what is
I don't have a whole bunch more to say about it.
what did you have for your second one you had seen?
Second one that I have seen, and this is where when you said it's a bigger version of a show, like the fancier version, Transformers the movie, the
Yeah.
original
Yes.
1986 animated film, which is
That
very
is.
much just a big budget version.
Yeah, that's pretty
Um,
peak the movie. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
that being said, um, got a stellar voice cast in
Oh
there.
man, that Transformers the movie is the best Transformers movie. Like
Oh yeah,
it just is. It just is the best
full,
Transformers movie. It it's
full
it's
stop.
it's Transformers the movie. It's the first 5 minutes of Bumblebee. No, sorry, first 3 minutes of Bumblebee, and then it's the first Michael Bay Transformers movie in that order.
Like you just names wise, you've got Eric Idle, Leonard Nimoy,
Leonard
uh,
Nimoy,
uh,
Orson Welles.
uh, Frank Welker, Orson Welles, Peter Cullen, like so many classic.
I
And then
mean, the
the
soundtrack kicks fucking ass,
I was
man.
gonna say
The soundtrack is
I would
so good.
I would speak praises for this movie just for the
The
soundtrack. You
soundtrack
got
is so
weird
good.
Stan Bush, Weird Al, like oh. Oh, if you love rock and heavy metal and like all those kind of
It's
like
just
oh,
classic, yeah, 80s butt rock. Like it's so
and
good.
then there's the movie itself, which is like it really does it like plot wise it's supposed to be like 25 years after the end, like what was at that point the end of the show.
No, no, that's
And
not true.
so
It actually the it takes place
after the
during.
second season,
Yeah, it takes place
so
after the second. It takes place
set,
midway.
set, set in 2005, 20 years after the TV series second season.
Yeah, yeah, but it doesn't take place after the show. It takes place during the show. The show is still very much on the air when the movie came out.
Right. But what I'm saying is that the third season hadn't come out at this point. So
No, no,
at
no.
this point, this is the continuation of the show.
Sure, but it's not. It doesn't take place after the show. That's more the point. It takes place during the show.
No. Anyways, 20 years after the show. So it's sort of fun because you get to see like a grown-up adult version. For the people that are watching this, it's the first time you get to see a full grown-up adult version of the main character from the first Spike, the
Yeah,
first two seasons. Um and you see his son and stuff, and then I mean, I'm just gonna say it. It's very bold of them to kill off like all their main heroes and
yeah,
like main characters and main villain and like all of them. And Optimus Prime
they
and like
didn't
just
see it that way.
mercilessly murder them.
Oh, this ties into this one, but the thing I might forget to mention about Once Upon a Force real quick is yeah, the movies in the 90s and 80s not afraid to traumatize children.
Oh yeah, oh
Straight
yeah.
up, straight up in that Once Upon a Forest, they just show the dead bodies of two of the parents. Like she goes into like they get gassed and she runs in and they're just there and they're dead and they don't come back. And then there's a point at the end where she's like, oh, all the parents come back. And everyone's all happy to see their parents, except for the one character who is like, no, your parents are dead. They're not coming back. They're not. They're not coming back. Yours, some of them come back.
Um, I mean, eventually in the show, um,
Yeah, they weren't expecting Optimus Prime's death to be a generational, like, traumatizing
trauma.
event. Yeah.
I gotta say, it's kind of impressive how uh I'm just looking at the voice, like who plays who. It's kind of impressive how many characters Frank Welker plays in this.
Oh, yeah. I mean, to be fair,
Plays
also,
he, he plays six different characters.
Rodimus Prime is
Also,
also famous. He's played by Judd Nelson, who I believe is from Taxi, I want to say.
yes, he is played by Judd Nelson.
Yeah.
Can we talk about though? If we're gonna talk about this movie, we have to talk about. Can we talk about how badass Unicron is?
I mean, he's
Planet
so
size,
badass.
planet size transformer that just destroy, like eats. He's the Death Star essentially. If the Death Star could transform into a gigantic
Pretty
robot,
much. I saw Death Battle described him as like robot Satan, basically. I love the detail that I
Right.
learned from that Death Battle that every version of Unicron is the same version of
is
Unicron.
the same version. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's really cool.
that is really cool.
Other thing that I wanted to talk about is so why in this. I mean, I know why. Functionally, I understand why, but in terms of like the internal show, like internal logic of this universe, why is every planet but Earth robots?
That is an excellent question. I'm
Like
pretty sure the show explains it.
every single planet that they go to, every single one is robots
Or
except for
maybe,
Earth.
or maybe they're just coincidentally going to the ones that are robots. Maybe they're just not going to the ones. Maybe there's plenty of other planets where they're not robots, and we're just not seeing those planets.
So, like functionally, the external factor, I understand. Saturday morning cartoon, robots can get killed, people can't get killed. You have everything be robots, they can
And they can
destroy
be, and they can be
things.
toys. You must
And
forget
they can be
and they can
toys.
be toys. They can be sold. Yes. You can
So
sell those shark robots.
functionally, I understand. I'm just saying within the internal logic of the universe, I don't fully understand
Yeah,
it.
I know that. I'm pretty sure in later seasons there's episodes that expand their universe. Like that's where you find out that the Quintessons created them and all that shit. That comes in like
Yeah.
season 3 and 4. It got weird in the later seasons. They like explain a lot, and in comics they've explained a lot of like the
Oh
origins
yeah.
Transformers universe and all that sort of
things that you didn't even want to know, and the crossovers they've had crossover in comics. They've had crossovers with everything from My Little Pony to like Back to the Future.
Oh yeah, yeah.
uh
I think
like
the Justice League at one point. I
I
think.
think I think they did the justice. I'm not sure if they've done Power Rangers, but I could believe they
I could
did.
believe they've done Power Rangers. Power Rangers have also crossed over with just about everybody in the comics, so it wouldn't surprise me
uh
if they had.
so and I mean, like Leonard Nimoy as Galvatron, that voice, which then became Master Xehanort.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like,
He's good.
like, oh,
And then
oh,
it's
it's a
funny.
great. And then there's the in the which the version I watched, it did have the swear,
The swear.
but the swear where they say shit.
The
Oh
icon.
shit!
Yeah, the iconic swear. The swear that on the DVD is literally its own chapter. It's called the
Yeah,
swear. Yeah,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
iconic. Yeah, they cut
Which is
it out of
hilarious.
every subsequent version of the movie. Which, for those of you who are not unfamiliar with the swear, there's a point in Transformers movie, yeah, where Spike says shit. He goes, "Oh shit," and in
Um,
every release of it, they deleted it out of the movie until like the one of the later releases where they finally put it back in, to the confusion of an entire generation. Wait,
yeah,
there's a swear word in this movie?
yeah, right. Part of the reason why, I guess, part of the reason why it felt why it was so accurate to the television show is because it was co-produced and directed by Nelson Shin, who also produced the television
Yeah, oh
shows.
yeah. Back in the day, they used to just let the people who made the television show make the movies and just gave them more money. And that's why a lot of those movies stand out and are so people still like, because yeah, it wasn't someone reinterpreting the material, which I'm not saying I have an issue with, but there's a time and place for that.
Yeah, and this works as it is, and
It
it's good.
absolutely works as it is.
So
Yeah.
that's my second half scene. What's we're gonna do yours now, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We're gonna do mine. So my first one is a movie called "We're Back: a dinosaur movie." Which, to start off with, I always thought was a Don Bluth movie. For many, many years, I thought it was a Don Bluth movie. I was positive that We're Back: A Dinosaur Story was a Don Bluth movie.
I
It
can
is
see why you say
not.
that.
It is not. It is in fact a Steven. It's not a. It's a not directed by Steven Spielberg. It's directed by a bunch of names that you don't know, and written by people you don't know. Apparently, it's based on a book of the same name.
Really?
But it is produced by Steven Spielberg. It's not produced by Steven Spielberg.
Is the book as dark as the movie's ending? With
Oh,
a man
oh.
with a man getting eaten alive by crows?
I tried to look up the book. I couldn't find any information on it. But interesting. Music is done by James Horner. That's what it is. It's not specifically made by Steven Spielberg. It's produced by Amblin Entertainment, which is Steven Spielberg's production company. So he's not directly involved in it. For those of you unfamiliar with We're Back: A Dinosaur Story, it's about three dinosaurs who are taken from prehistoric times and given a intelligence increasing cereal called brain something. I said it with such confidence. Brain Grain. That's what it's called. They gives them a breakfast cereal called Brain Grain, which makes them hyper intelligent. It takes them to the future, to the present day, with the intention of them going to a museum where they can grant the wishes of all sorts of children. And along the way, they run into a little boy and a little girl who they get into misadventures, and they wind up at a circus with an evil bad guy who is the brother of the guy who gives them the Brain Grain cereal.
The
That's We're Back.
the little kids who are just Lisa Simpson and T.J. Detweiler.
Yeah, kind of. Except for what's weird is the boy is played by a kid, and Lisa Simpson is an adult. And there's a lot of weird romance scenes when you remember that, where you're like, "Oh, this makes me uncomfy."
If it makes you feel any better, they probably never met each other.
And this movie, it's an hour and 4 minutes minus credits. It's not long enough, and it's missing stuff. My big thing with this is like it doesn't it it's too short, so it really needs to like run through plot points. So it's a lot of like, wait, so this guy's from the future. How does he's got a time machine? And he talks about how he made a lot of money selling this intelligence increasing cereal. So like he's decided to go back in time and grant wishes, but it's never really explained. It's not really ever explained why the bad guy is evil. There's a deleted scene where he explains that Crow's pecked out his eyes because like something got in his eye and the crow went for him and it drove him mad, and that's why he's created this evil circus. But it's not really explained. Like this movie could use, and I rarely say this about kids movies, but this movie could have used an additional 15, 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes of just like it really wants to have this lesson, this moral at the end, because at the end the beginning of the movie is this. Oh yeah, that was the other thing. In the 90s, parents didn't really seem to care about their kids all that much, because twice in these movies, there's a scene where a kid is trying to get food, and his other brothers and sisters are like beating him up and stealing the food, and he goes to the mom, and he's like, "I'm not getting any food, Mom. It's not fair." And the mom's like, "You're just gonna have to learn to fend for yourself." And it's just like, you're on your own, kid.
This is the bird, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good
yeah,
luck. Yeah. And then he goes to run away, and he meets the T-Rex, who then tells him the story of of what happens in the movie.
The T-Rex who is playing golf, which sort of implies that like this is further in the future, where I guess humans are just okay with the T-Rex.
Right. You would
think
that, right? But then to skip ahead, it gets to the end of the movie, and it's like he shows up. He says what happens to the kids, and it's like, no, it just kind of implies that this just happened like last week. Like these events are recent. It's not years later. This is like fairly recent. He's just on a break from the and at the end they're all like, no, you can't tell the adults because the adults will freak out. So no, it's still implied the fact that he's a real dinosaur is completely like fake.
I mean, so I guess the professor, the brain drain one, he just must have reserved the golf course for him, eh?
Well, what's funny is like, so yeah, he takes them, and then he's like, okay, so you need to get to the Museum of Natural History, and
you didn't say it right, Justin. It's the Museum of
Natural History. Wink.
Wink.
Yes. He says, okay, he's got to go there, and he's like, okay, watch out for Professor Screw Eyes, my crazy brother, and you're going to the thing. And then he just kind of drops them out of the hatch, and they land in the water, and they crash on top of the boy.
I need you to go to this place. Good luck.
Yeah, pretty much. And then he's like, wait, and so then they follow the boat, and the kid shows up. And he meets the kids, and they find out he's running away to the circus, so they go with him to run away to the circus or whatever. And then you see the lady from the Natural History Museum shows up to grab them. He's like, wait, why didn't he? And then you see later in the movie that the ship can land on the ground. So like, well, why didn't he just land the ship and wait for her to show up? It just kind of seems irresponsible of him to just drop these creatures who have developed intelligence, some intelligence.
For less than a day, like childlike level of intelligence.
For like an afternoon.
An afternoon. Like, you're good, right? You can go to this place and not be discovered by humans who are gonna jump to conclusions and freak out.
And like, so there seems to be this lesson that they want you to take away. Oh, you should value your family. Because the movie ends with the birds like the kid reconciling with his family, but there's nothing with the kids with their family. So it's not much. I would add a scene at the beginning, keep the beginning bit with the bird, and have him be like, oh, you remind me of another little bird I know, another kid I once knew, and then show the scene at the beginning of the movie of him running away from home and showing him with his family and showing the family, and then also showing the girl, and just like 5 minutes, a 5 minute or 2 minute scene or whatever of what their family is like.
And if you really want to traumatize the children, you make it when TJ Detweiler is running away. There's like implied domestic violence, and a beer bottle gets thrown at his head.
It's funny that you say that, because when he meets the girl the first time, she gets really upset. She's really upset. He's like, "Oh, why are you so upset?" She's like, "Oh, I'm upset about my parents." And he's like, "Oh, why? Do they hit you?" And like, that's how you know this takes place in the 90s.
Right? Because it was okay to hate your children back then,
It
Justin.
was absolutely okay to hit your
No,
kids.
no, you failed the test yet again. You failed the test every time, Justin.
It was okay.
It's socially acceptable does not mean it was okay.
It was
You
okay.
failed the test, and that's why you're not a parent.
Yes, that's the reason why I'm not a
That's
parent.
exclusively the only reason why you're not a
But
parent.
it's funny when you watch these movies from when you were a kid and you pick up on the things that you missed when you were you pick up as an adult. Actually, you pick up things that you missed. So like the Triceratops, who's obsessed with eating hot dogs. It's funny now because a Triceratops would not be able to eat hot dogs. Like, not only does he not have the mouth, the teeth, or anything to chew it, his digestive system would not be able to digest it. Like, he
He's a
literally
herbivore.
wouldn't be able to eat hot dogs.
But you could argue that the brain drain caused him to evolve, and so now he could.
I mean, now he has the desire to maybe, but I don't. He's like he still can't digest them.
Or could he?
The other confusing character is so the movie is implied that like, and here's another thing I would add is I would make it where I would show a scene earlier that explains because there's a character in this movie played by Martin Short. Also, the cast in this movie is funny. It's got John Goodman and I think it's his first voice acting role. And Walter Cronkite is the
Walter Cronkite.
yeah. There's a really funny bit at the end where he's the
Who's he playing?
the professor, the good professor.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then there's a bit at the end where they resolve everything, and it cuts to him, and he looks right at the camera and he goes, "And that's the way it is." That I never got.
Never would have
I
gotten that.
never got that. I'm like, oh, okay, because he's Walter Cronkite. Oh my god, that makes sense. That's fucking funny. That's a funny joke. That's funny. I appreciate
That's
that.
funny.
But there's like not enough time in the movie because it's only an hour and 4 minutes. There's just not enough time of them
Wow. Is it really that short?
it's an hour and 10 with credits, like an hour
Did not
14
feel
with credits.
Did not feel that short.
Yeah,
as a kid.
yeah, and so there needed to be more time of them at the circus. Like it's just too quick that the dinosaurs are like, and we'll go back to being animals again. I think they needed one more scene of them like trying to be dinosaurs, but not like at the circus, but not being scary. Like have a scene where like they're trying to be part of it and they're just not working. And like they're like,
And then that's when he feeds them the brain drain.
yeah, and like you have it where he's like fucking with the kids or whatever he's making, and they're like, okay, let the kids go, and then yeah, have so then that means more because otherwise it just happens really fast and it kind of washes over you. And when you see them, like it's genuinely a scary moment. Everything with Professor Screwwise is very scary. So it's just like we needed a moment of like to establish the stakes, I think. For it to work for me. I also there's a character called Stubbs the Clown, played by Martin Short, he is a very confusing character because his entire desire is he wants to make people laugh, but Professor Screwwise has a scary circus, and it's sort of implied that it wasn't always a scary circus. Like Stubbs says at one point, he's like, "Oh, things have gotten weird. It has gotten weird." It has gotten weird and scary around here lately, implying that it wasn't always scary. So I would maybe add more between Professor Screwwise and the professor, where you see them as younger men and have it where it's like they both had a dream of like granting wishes or whatever, and the professor decided to go into it with technology or whatever, and he decided to do the circus, and that's when he met Stubbs, and it started off as like a happy circus, and then. Yeah, the crow pecked out his eyes and he went insane, and then that's when the circus slowly got scary. Because
I would have also then had a scene where like to pile on that where it's like Stubbs is talking to Screw Eyes where he's like, what happened? Because I can picture it in my mind where he's like, what happened to you? You used to be fun and funny, and Screw Eyes like turns around and snarls, like, I was never funny. I was always scary.
Yeah,
Like this
yeah.
is what it was.
Yeah, exactly. And then that way, like, and make it and like really lean into like his thing with crows or whatever. So that way, when the crows eat him at the end, I mean, there is a deleted scene, like I said, that sort of explains his deal and stuff. But I would have had more with the crows, and yeah, I would have had it where he wasn't always evil, because there's a moment at the end where he's like, oh, come with us and be good, but there isn't like any hint that he's capable of that. I would have added that. And yeah, Stubbs has this big freak out at the end where he's freaking out at
I quit.
yeah, like, you want to know why they're laughing? Because that's funny. That's a payoff to a bit. A lot of this movie, there's a lot of scenes which are like ending of character arcs that you never see the beginning of. Like there's middle and beginnings of character arcs that you never see the beginning of. And it would have benefited from, again, 20 to 30 minutes. Like if this were an hour and 45-minute movie, it would have been a much better movie. And yeah, very definitely there's an attitude that like kids are dumb. They can't sit through movies that are very long. But that was We're Back, a Dinosaur Story. I like that. I liked it still. I had fun. It wasn't as like weirdly agitating as another movie, as the next one I'm going to talk about, which is Rock-a-Doodle. I watched Rock-a-Doodle. Whoa. I remember loving that.
He's just Elvis, Justin.
He's just
Elvis.
Just chicken Elvis. It's funny how you're like, oh, Waylon Jennings was in Follow That Bird, and I have no idea who that is. The guy who plays Chanticleer is a famous.
Chanticleer.
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 He's a famous country singer, and it's one of those like his name. You look him up, and he's like, yeah, he's a famous guy. Don't know who he is. Famous country singer. No.
Yeah,
clue.
that makes sense.
That one is a Don Bluth movie, and it's funny how we began our discussion of these childhood cartoons of mine by being like, yeah, a kid's movie can make sense. Like the last one, it makes sense. It has a certain logic to it. I would have just added more to it. This movie didn't make a lick of goddamn fucking sense. It was incoherent nonsense. Because, okay, first of all, interesting thing. When I was a kid so much, but as I got older and I rewatched this movie, I would be like, this feels like it's based on something. Like it always felt like it was like the retelling of like an old folk tale, or you know what I mean, where it's like this feels like it's
like Shrek.
Not Shrek so much, but like this feels like it's an adaptation of like Paul Bunyan. Like there's a Midwest urban legend myth version of this story or something. Like it felt like it was based on something, and it is. It's based on a play. It's based on a on like a 3-4 act play that is more similar than you'd expect. Like the him fighting the other crow, and him and the Duke tricking him and getting him to run away. All that shit, that's pretty much what the play is about. That opening bit where it's the Patu is narrating and saying what happened that caused Chanticleer to run away. That's the play. It has a different ending. It ends differently, but that's more or less it. That's more or less the play.
Interesting.
But the movie doesn't make a lick of sense, because so the movie begins with, okay, for those of you who have not seen Rock-a-Doodle, maybe it's an obscure Don Bluth movie, I don't know, but it's basically about this rooster who crows every single day to make the sun come up. He gets tricked into believing that he didn't crow and the sun came up anyway, and he runs away. And meanwhile, a little boy, his farm is being weathered, drowned by a storm, and he gets turned into a cat, and he teams up with the farm animals to go and get the rooster from Chanticleer back from the city. That's the movie. But so the movie is narrated by Patu, implying that he's telling this story. Obviously, he's telling this story, which means he's in the future. But the movie starts with them telling this backstory of what happened to Sean DeClaire, and then it cuts, and it's the mother reading the story, right? And
Right.
and reading the story to this kid, and so it's implied, okay, it's just a story, right? But then and the storm is happening in the background, whatever, and then he's in his room, and then the Duke shows up and turns him into a cat, and it becomes a cartoon, and the farm is still there.
He's a little kitty.
And they're trying to get him back to the farm, but not the original farm that all the animal characters are from, but the kids farm in live action, which is now a cartoon. And then it goes through the movie, and it comes, and he keeps trying to insist that he keeps trying to insist that he's a little boy, but none of the characters believe him, which is weird because they went into his house, in his room, his bedroom. That's where the story starts. But for some reason, they don't believe that he's a thing. And so it goes through the movie, and it gets to the end, and the kid dies. He gets killed by the Duke, and then he turns back into a little boy, and they're all like, "Oh, he is a little boy." And then it implies. It cuts, and he wakes up, and it implies that the whole thing is a dream, except for at the end of the movie, Patu is still telling the story. So he's like, oh, but whatever, Edmund's parents never believed him. So it's implying that Patu is in fact real, and the events of the movie did happen, and then the kid gets sucked into a bad special effect of him dancing with the cartoon animals, but you can completely see the shading of the effect. So it's really badly green screened in. And then that's the movie. So it doesn't make any sense. It's unclear as to whether or not it's meant to actually have happened or not. And it's frustrating because there's literally no reason for the live action bits to be there. No reason. You can completely cut them out and just have it where he's just a cat. Where he's just like a stray cat who has shown up at this farm, and he gets attacked by the Duke. And yeah. It's never, they never explain why the sun still comes up when Sean DeClaire doesn't sing. They never explain any of that. Like, none of it's explained. It makes no sense.
I just always assumed, or my headcanon, I guess, if you want, was that it was a dream, and him seeing them at the end was his imagination.
Right.
Like he was like, like a child.
Yeah, absolutely. You would think that, but having watched this recently, no, it's implied that it's real. It's implied that the parents are the ones who are crazy for not believing. It's super fucking weird. It makes no sense. It's incoherent, and it's unnecessary. And it's funny.
That's going to be my headcanon going forward.
It's funny because it's really apparent that the live action shit was like filmed way before the cartoon, the voiceover stuff, because the kid is he's such a bad actor when he's live action, but he's not bad when he's a kid, when he's a cartoon, when it's animated, like it's not bad. And the other funny bit of it to me was, like, as a kid, Elvis is a recognizable enough figure that I knew he was supposed to be Elvis. Like, especially when he does the bit where he comes on, he's literally wearing the costume. Like, I knew that he was Elvis. Like, I knew that he was. But I've since seen that Elvis biopic, and like, I now get all the jokes about how his manager is a piece of shit. And it's like, it's like that. It's like the thing from Avengers where it's like, I get that reference. Or he's like, I get that reference now.
I get that reference.
Yeah, I understood
that.
Yeah, no,
reference. I mean, Elvis was a cartoon in and of himself.
Well, by the time he was in Vegas, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, so absolutely, growing up, it's like I didn't know Elvis, but I knew Elvis.
But you knew Elvis, yeah, absolutely,
yeah.
And yeah, some of the songs. It's funny to me. There's the movie has like 3 songs, and it's not bad. My favorite one is the one where he it's the we'd like to have you all for dinner, and you're not your father.
Oh yeah.
Fiddly dee, fiddly dum. That song has like 3 reprises. There's the one where it's the bodyguard just shoving people out of the way. Where it's like, go out of the way. Yeah. We'd like to have... favorite. I was like, we are the creatures of the night, and we invite you all
inviting you for dinner.
Yeah, that's my favorite one.
One of the ones that always sticks in my brain is the is when he's on the motorcycle after the girl chicken has told him the truth, and it's the or maybe it's slightly before that where it's the bees or whatever. It's like the da 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 da
Oh
da
yeah,
da
yeah,
da.
yeah. The
Which
motorcycle.
I don't know if that's based on an actual song or something, but
I'm not
that's
sure.
just,
The motorcycle bit was funny though because like at that point he's figured out that the manager is keeping him there, and because the friends have shown up and are like, yeah, we need you to come crow, and it's like like despite the fact that it's never been applied, like there's a lot of points in that movie where it's like there's a lot of things that happen in the climax that have never been established earlier in the movie. So like there's this whole thing where like he can't crow, and it's like that's not been established in the movie at all. There's not a bit where it's like Sean DeClaire isn't a character in that movie so much as he's just a plot device. So like there's not a moment in that movie where he struggles to crow. He sings pretty successfully the whole time, and they don't really differentiate the two. But there's a really funny moment where where all the guys show up
undo shines,
to,
undo
to,
shine.
to
My daddy taught me how to sing, and that's why this voice means everything.
they
Undo
show up
shine.
to tell him that they need him, and the manager's like, you have to sing for me or I'll kill them, and make this movie or I'll kill him. And he's on the motorcycle, which apparently is just a functional motorcycle, and they have the door open, and he immediately is like, and just like zooms off.
Yeah.
And it's like, why did you're holding him hostage? Why did you keep the door open? That was weird. That's a bad choice on your part.
And then there's the there's what's her name? Goldie? Is that the girl?
Goldie, yeah.
Where it's like she confused many boys, I'm sure.
She is one of those characters, yeah.
Yeah.
Apparently at one point she was more sexualized, like she straight up had cleavage, and someone said so it made someone uncomfortable, so they added the feathers on her chest to hide it. Yeah.
That's funny.
And but yeah, so there's this the climax is like it's so weird. Like he goes back to the farm. He can't crow, and then it's unclear as to he crows, and it's unclear as to whether or not like it's magic or like what the deal block. Is. Yeah, it's funny when you read the play. The ending of the play is basically like he same deal. He has the girlfriend or whatever. And it just turns out that he doesn't need to crow for the sun to come up, but he just likes doing it. Like it's just a thing he enjoys doing, and the girl has to like deal with the fact that he just likes doing it, and that's it. It's not like magic. There's no magic involved, and like
that's a change that was probably better. Like they needed him to do it. He needs to come back. Let's just make it so he needs to.
But the movie never clarifies why what about him crowing causes the sun to come up. And again, I think that has to do with the fact that it's also like an hour and 15 minutes long. Like these movies, maybe that's why kids movies moved to being an hour and a half, an hour and 40, because they were just better explained. Like this movie just made no sense. It was so confusing and bad. It's funny, a lot of these ones when I look them up, they're badly received. Like Once Upon a Forest was bad. It's got like a 30%. And I'm like, I get it. This is one of those ones where I remember thinking it was good, and man, it's not. We're Back. It was also poorly received, but I at least can see why. It's like that one's fun. That one had some fun moments. It's not overly stupid, but yeah, Rockadoodle was not good. One of his worst ones. But anyway, that was Rockadoodle. It was bad. It was a bad movie. I guess with that, we'll move into the stuff we hadn't seen. Jordan, what is the first thing you hadn't seen?
It's one that I've been aware of for a while, but I've never watched it, and it falls into that category of like surprisingly dark considering it's a kids movie. It's The Black Cauldron.
Oh yeah, that's the one that nearly killed Disney.
I mean, yeah, it lost a lot of money. I was just looking at that.
It lost a lot of money.
It had a budget of $44 million, and it did $21.3 at the box office.
Yeah, as a result, Disney almost sold. They almost sold the company. Like that's how badly it was bad.
Apparently, it's loosely based on 2 books in the Chronicles of Prydain, whatever.
There's people who are huge fans of those books that were upset that movie didn't do better, and have always been like they should try to redo them. At one point, they wasn't gonna be called The Black Cauldron again, but
honestly, as an adult watching it, It's not a bad movie. I enjoyed it. Like I had a
Yeah,
good time with it. It gets intense at
yeah.
points.
There's a reason it's a cult classic.
The one of the bad guy in it. He's basically a necromancer,
Yeah.
like where he's got the skull, like he's a skull face, and like he wants to use the cauldron to summon an army of the undead. Like he's a lich,
Yeah, yeah.
like like pretty much anyway.
But this movie is why when people are like, "Oh, Disney is in dire straits" or whatever, I'm always like, "Look, out of the Black Cauldron came the Little Mermaid." So like,
Yeah,
never count Disney out.
sometimes sometimes you know strange things happen, but the characters are cute. The animation is pretty gorgeous.
Yeah. It was
Um,
an expensive movie, and they were confident it was going to do well.
yeah, and you could tell that it was expensive. It's got so they've got the little sidekick character, who he talks like this and is like the master, you kind of character, and he dies. Like he comes back, obviously spoilers for those who haven't seen it, but like there's basically a point where they're all tied up, and they have earlier in the movie found out that the way to destroy the Black Cauldron and defeat it and stop it is someone has to basically willingly jump into it and sacrifice themselves. And so there's a point where they're all tied up, and the mascot character who up to this point has been like a coward, a scaredy coward who's run away at every like battle moment.
Oh.
He sneaks in and he like unties them and stuff, and he's like, well, Master has friends and people that care about him, and I really only have you. So if I'm gonna drop the voice because it's a pain, but he's like, if one of us has to die, I mean, I guess it should be me because I only have you who cares about me, and you have a bunch of people. So bye. And he jumps in the cauldron and dies. And it's like, if you're a kid watching this, as far as you're concerned, this lovable, fluffy character is dead and not coming back.
I mean,
Um,
nothing will ever, in terms of like killing off kids' characters. To me, the most brutal to this day is still Princess and the Frog when he
oh yeah,
kills
the cricket, not cricket, the
the cricket,
firefly,
the cricket. Yeah.
a firefly.
Yeah, Firefly. Yeah, where he like steps on him, and he's just like,
Yeah,
and you hear him
and
crunch
he's
him.
just, he does like this, like
Yeah, yeah.
um,
That to me is the
but
most. Oh, or Clayton getting hung. Clayton getting hung is pretty good.
oh yeah, in the shadows and stuff. Oh
Yeah,
yeah, there's definitely some dark. I mean, Frollo falling into the fire, which is like hell, and
that's
falling
true.
into hell is also intense. Like this is just in the 80s. This is in that time frame of like Disney was not afraid to be dark, and
Yeah,
I kind of miss those days.
right.
Um, where it's like they were not afraid to traumatize children,
I look.
and then
I think we're
also
coming back around to we're not afraid to traumatize children anymore. There's some kids movies nowadays which are like, yeah, we're not. We're losing the fear. We're losing it. Like, there's
apparently.
space for both, man. We can have the upsetting movies that are there to traumatize children, and we can do the ones that are lighthearted. We can exist in both worlds.
Apparently, this was the first Disney animated film to receive a PG rating.
Really interesting.
Yeah, and the first Disney animated film to feature computer generated imagery.
Interesting. So, would you say is it a bad movie?
I don't think so. I had a good time with it. I thought it was cute. I'm not a kid.
Yeah, fair
If
enough.
I'm watching this through the eyes of if I was a kid watching this growing up, it
Yeah, fair enough. I
I
wanted to. I wanted to watch it
I
as a kid.
think I think like 10, 12 year olds would enjoy it. I don't think 6 or 7 would.
Yeah, fair enough. I remember I always wanted to watch. I've always wanted to watch that movie, and I've just never have. It's
I would recommend it. It's a good one.
interesting. Interesting. Oh yeah.
But
So
I can understand. Here's what I'll say. I can understand at the time how, especially if it was the first PG film that Disney did.
yeah,
I can see why, like it was testing waters, and I can see why it maybe pushed too far at the time.
for sure.
If it was like now, I like they could absolutely get away with something like this.
My thing is like they obviously learned the lesson of like the balance because yeah after this you get Little Mermaid, which yes absolutely has it can be scary, and Aladdin can be scary, so like they knew that they could do scary, it just couldn't be wall to wall scary bonanza.
I guess my one comment or one of my comments that I guess I would maybe make about this movie, it doesn't feel like Disney. It feels more like a Don Bluth or Secret of Nim. It reminds
Yeah,
me of Secret of Nim,
I could see why you would say
where it's
that.
like it's not it doesn't strike that same like even animation wise, it doesn't strike that same like Disney
What year is it?
feel.
What year did it come out?
85,
85.
1985.
So it's because you know Don Bluth used to work for Disney, right? I'm not sure if that's a bit of trivia, you know.
I do know that.
And he
He might
he
have.
he left Disney, and that's when he did his string of like Land Before Time and all those guys. I'm just wondering this must have been after he left because
This
it could have been
was
a response to him. It does kind of sound
this
like it might
was
have been.
this was directed by Ted Berman and Richard Rich. Richard Rich, really, that's a funny name.
Who did the animation?
Uh,
Does it say who the artists are? Who the artists are?
distributed by Buena Vista Distribution Production Companies, Walt Disney Pictures, Walt Disney Productions, Silver Screen Partners.
Because I'm wondering if it was a response to Don Bluth and Don Bluth doing stuff that was like because this feels like could be a response to All Dogs
It
Go to
just
Heaven
says that
or
it just says produced by Walt Disney Productions in association with Silver Screen Partners 2 and released by Walt Disney Pictures.
huh huh. Then yeah, his name would be there.
The movie
Whew.
the previous movie that they did before was Fox and the Hound.
Yeah, yeah. And Fox of the Hound didn't do well either. That movie did not do well.
Uh, yeah, that doesn't surprise me. During production, it had a severe editing process, particularly for its climactic sequence, which proved to be disturbing to children during a test screening.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
this is one of those like correct me if I'm wrong moments, but I don't think those books are like for young kids. I think they're like teenager books.
I have no idea. I didn't realize until
Yeah,
I
there's quite a
was
number of
reading
them.
this that it was based on them.
Yeah,
There's five.
it's five. Yeah, it's basically like another version of I think Narnia. It's got a similar feel to Narnia, but again, I could
Yeah.
be wrong.
No, if I had to describe one movie that this like the animation and the feel of it, the vibe that it made me think of, it would be like Secret of Nim.
Interesting.
Um, like just in turn, I don't, because
Having
it's
not watched it and only ever seeing the
mostly because it's described as a dark fantasy adventure film,
interesting.
which that's kind of what the
Yeah.
Secret of Nim feels like.
Having not seen it and only ever seen clips of it, I could see why you would say it gives a very Don Bluth. It reminds me of either that or I also would have said I think the first one is a Don Bluth one, the Swan Princess.
Yeah, yeah, I could also see that. Like yeah, that sort of like another Anastasia, where it's like not Disney.
Yeah, that sort of art style.
Yeah.
I absolutely can see what you mean. So you
Uh,
already asked you this question, but you would recommend it?
I would watch it. I,
Yeah.
I I enjoyed it. I can definitely see why it's a cult classic.
Yeah, that's funny because all the ones I chose, it's like I'm reading about it and I'm like, yeah, this one's a cult classic, and I'm like, interesting. Not all cult
Uh,
classics are created equal.
so
Um,
who knows? Maybe in the future, you can watch it and give me your opinions.
yeah, yeah,
Not not necessarily on stream, but just generally.
yeah. It's one of those ones where I'll find an excuse. I have a Disney based episode in my brain that I'm thinking of. But any further thoughts on the Black Cauldron?
Um, no, no, I don't
What
think
is
so.
what you know what? Just to keep this. You know what? Fuck it. What's your second one you hadn't seen?
My second one that I hadn't seen is Big, the Tom Hanks movie, which
I wanna
it's
be
cute, it's fun.
big. I wanna be
I want to
big.
be big. It's weird to see Tom Hanks so young.
Yeah.
It's always weird, like when you get an actor that is like, I now associate them with being older, and see them when they were still like he's. I don't know. I couldn't find. I tried looking it up. Couldn't find his exact age, but the year based on his age and how old he is, Google says he should have been about 32 when he
Interesting.
made this movie.
That's
Um,
it's funny.
which is how old I am,
Yeah, right.
and it's weird. And so like, the in the movie he has when so for those who don't know the movie, um, the 13-year-old boy makes a wish on a Zoltar machine that he could be big, which I will say it's like a monkey paw situation. He didn't wish to be older. Because in this movie, like in the
He was thinking
Alvin
more
and
like I want to be taller. He really should have
yeah, yeah,
specified.
yeah. So it's funny because my only frame of reference for this movie, like before watching this movie, was the Alvin and the Chipmunks like parody of it, where it's like they did their version of the story, right? And in that, Alvin very much wants to be older.
Yeah,
Like he is wishing to be older, right?
yeah,
Whereas in this, no, he just wanted to be taller. He
yeah.
wanted to be able to ride on the roller coaster with the girl that he had a crush.
Wait. I can't hear you. I can't hear you. No, still can't hear you. Try unplugging and plugging in your headphones. Try jiggling with it on the. Can you hear me? I can't tell if that's me or not. No, I still can't hear you. Can you hear me? Dang it. We're like at the end of this too. Is that me? No, I can't hear you.
Can you hear
Oh,
me now?
yeah, I can hear you now.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
I can hear you now. That was weird.
that was weird. So I just talk for a bit.
Talk, 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 talk,
Okay,
talk, talk, talk.
that's better. Okay, yeah, now I can hear you. Sorry, that
Uh,
was all of a sudden I can. That was just like I think you mentioned in a previous quick where it's like I can hear you in the other room just fine, but I can't. I can't. And the difference between us is I can hear what you're saying enough to respond to you, but you can't hear me.
oh, it was weird too because it was like all of a sudden I couldn't hear you. So it was
Yeah,
like my microphone just stopped work. But the red light is on. Like it shows that it's still getting past. Anyway, what was I saying?
big.
Right, big. In the actual movie, uh, he uh, he very much just wants to be taller, and so it's like when he gets turned into and he gets turned into the Tom Hanks, the 30-year-old version, and like he's in his room and he's wearing small children's underwear, and it's uncomfortable. And he goes down and he tries to convince his mom that he is him, and his mom's like, "Who the hell?" Basically, not so many words, is like, "Who the hell are you? Get the hell out of here! Here's my person!" Like is coming at him with a knife, and then like he goes to the school and he tries to convince his friend that he's him, and he does. But at first, his friend is very much like, "Coach, help!" Like he's worried that he's gonna get like I don't even know what his fears are. Something scary.
I think we all
Um,
know what his fears are, but we're not going to talk about it.
we're not gonna talk about it. And so then like he Tom the main character Tom Hanks adult kid. We're gonna call it for the duration. I'm gonna call him Man Child. Man Child goes with Child to the city, and ends up getting a job at this toy factory, and it's like the perfect place for him, or toy. I don't think it's a factory, but like where they design toys or whatever. And it's like, man, it sure must have been easy to get a job in the 80s because it was easy for him to get a job being a 13-year-old child with no education, no college degree, and just vaguely using a computer a bit. So he goes and gets a job as a data cruncher.
Yeah, yeah, right.
Uh,
It shouldn't. I mean, yes, it was. To
sure,
answer your question, it was.
sure
It was
sounds
that
like it was
easy,
very easy to get a job, and I'm a little bit envious about of them.
right?
Uh, um, but and then man-child ends up dating 30-year-old colleague, and it's weird if you think about it too much, so we're not going to think about it too much, and we're just going to gloss right over that, because it's weird when you think about it
It's
too much.
weird.
It's okay.
It has made
Okay,
that movie
okay.
age badly.
I should preface it with it's it's not weird until it is weird.
Yeah,
It is a little like it's not weird because like I know I said I was going to talk about it. I have to talk about it. She doesn't know,
yeah,
and she just thinks that he's like a person her age who is very childlike and brings out the youth in her and makes her happy and is fun and just knows how to live life and hasn't actually lived 30 years of life. Or 32 years of life or whatever, and so isn't jaded and bitter and an adult.
yeah.
And so that's why she likes him and is drawn to him. So it's like at that point, okay, that's not weird. She doesn't know he's a 13-year-old child. He's lying to her. And I understand from his point of view, like from his perspective, like he's old enough to know what girls are and like girls, and he had a crush earlier in the movie. So like, yeah, okay, he develops an attachment to this girl, this woman. Okay, at that point, I get it. It's still weird, but it's like there's nothing inherently necessarily wrong, but it is, but it isn't. But like, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yes, yes, yes.
Um, but where it gets weird is when he tells her that like the transformation. He's like, I'm actually like much 13 or whatever, and like right before he goes back to his house after he's made the wish, she makes a comment of like maybe hold on to my number for when you're like an adult, and it's like that's a weird thing that you 30-year-old women have said to this 13-year-old boy. Like
That's a
you're
weird thing to
the
say
fact
after you found out that you've technically assaulted a minor.
the fact right like the fact that like you're still like showing interest and he like so he's like I have there's so many reasons for me to go back and like only one for me to stay, and it's like on the one hand, aw, like that's cute, but on the other hand, like I it I feel icky, but it's like it's cute, but I feel icky, but it's cute,
It makes me think
but I
of
feel icky.
and there's a Spider-Man comic where Black Cat kisses Spider-Man and then looks at him and sees that he's a teenager and immediately vomits in his mask because she's like, "This is
Yeah,
not cool."
right, like you lied to me.
That's the correct response. No, he didn't lie. He never once said that he was a grown adult man. In the
No,
Spider-Man example.
I meant in this one.
Did you have anything
Um,
further to say about the movie Big?
uh, I mean, it apparently, wow, it did very well
Yeah,
financially.
it's a very successful
Uh,
movie. It's the reason
it
why
had
we're
a
still
budget of
talking about it.
it had a budget of 18 million, and it made 151.7 million at the box office.
It's definitely one of those like I can't believe there's not more of them. Like really, like how many big, like how many like we can name like a bunch of they're doing a Freaky Friday movie, right? But how many like
Yeah,
a kid turns into adult movies can we name? Like what? There's Big, and then there's 13 going on 30, and like that's it. It's one of those ones where the weird sex stuff removed. You could do a version of this where it doesn't have weird sex stuff.
see,
Like
well,
oh, I guess they technically did. They technically did. Adult turns into a teenager because they did 17 again.
that's yeah, you're right. That's the thing that's a little bit not frustrating necessarily, but like there's a they didn't need to have him because like they could have had it where like I'm
He
trying to
didn't need a love interest.
well no, not even that. They could have done it where he dated her but they didn't have sex.
Yeah, but even then, it's still
And
weird.
but it would have been less weird. It would have like if they had been like because like kind of the thing in this movie is like she's like into him right away, and like they go back to his place, and like she wants to sleep with him right away,
Yeah.
and like stays over at his place, and like they're sleeping in bunk beds, and like they go for this thing where it's like, yeah, he's a kid, he doesn't really get it, right? He doesn't get what she's like implying.
Yeah.
So like they could have done this thing, and then like they end up doing it where it's like, yeah, they end up going all the way, and that's when they start dating, and like at a certain point she's like, what are we doing here? Is this an affair, or are we dating, or like are we just having fun? Like what are but they could have done this slow over the course thing where it's like she keeps trying to make passes at him and he doesn't get it, and like they end up having this slow high school level, like first they kiss and then like hold hands, or first they
No,
hold hands
no,
then they
there's
kiss.
no version of this where he's still 13 and she's still 30. There's no version of this where it's not weird.
I know, but it would have been less
No.
icky.
No, I don't think so because she's still 30 and he's still 13. It's still weird. There's no version where she's dating a minor where it's not weird. I'm sorry. Get it, got it out of the movie. Got it, cut it. Get rid of it.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to take the movie that exists, and I'm trying to find like
Yeah.
without that thing that we do like with Star Wars and stuff where it's like you're trying to change without changing it
It's just
entirely.
there's
And
just certain things where you gotta be like it aged badly, unfortunately. Like
I don't know.
there's no
I
fixing it.
don't I don't know what they were thinking. I don't
Um
know what they were
the,
thinking.
the,
Like I
the
don't
honest truth is
I
people's idea of dating minors was more flexible back then. Is
I
the
mean,
honest
here's
answer.
the thing. Like, if we took the plot of this movie, this is an example where it's like if we took the plot of this movie and gender bent it. Think about how. Oh God, no! Like,
No, it doesn't work.
it
It
doesn't. It
barely works with
doesn't.
a man.
Oh,
I mean, then there's
oh,
just that is that people also don't take sexual assault towards a male nearly as seriously as they do females.
no! Like
Ooh,
that.
don't clip that out of context.
I mean, you would have a lot of like South Park, like nice,
Yeah, pretty much. But
nice, like kind of thing.
anyway, this is already running long. Any more thoughts on Big?
Overall, good movie. Creepy about that.
Okay.
Other than that, it's fine.
So I got to tell you about two movies. I got to tell you about the first movie. I'm going to tell you about Robot Jocks. Jordan, very rarely does this happen where I'm like, I fully recommend this movie. This movie was amazing. Because I fully recommend this movie. This movie was amazing. Basically, Robot Jocks takes place 50 years after a nuclear holocaust. Mankind is decimated, and the surviving nations, the American Western influenced market and the Soviet Russia influenced Confederation, have agreed to outlaw traditional open war in their place. Disputes are settled between gladiator style matches between giant robots, operated by pilots called Robot Jocks. And they are contracted for 10 fights. And it's literally just robots fighting each other. And it's great. It's like the robots are stop motion and combined with live model work. It's very Power Rangers like, and it's just robots fighting each other. And yeah, it takes place in like this post-apocalyptic world where all fights are settled by robot fighting. And I kind of feel like, Jordan, this is the direction our society should lead in. We should move towards we just have an open area where no one gets injured, and like it's just like a big desert, and we have giant robots fight each other in lieu of nuclear war.
I mean, I certainly think that it's better than nuclear war.
It's definitely better than nuclear war if you just have giant robots. And then yeah, it's about one guy named Achilles. He it's his like final match, and he's about to fight the evil Russian guy who's like cartoonishly evil. He's like comedically evil. Like he at one point maniacally laughs. Like that's the kind of villain he is. And he's about to basically win his 10th fight. And after you win your 10th fight, you get to retire. And
So it's like gladiator rules.
yeah, pretty much. It's gladiator rules. Yeah. And as he's about to win, the guy tries to attack, and they have crowds there. who understand that by being there, they're taking a certain risk that they might get injured, or whatever. And he prevents them from getting injured, causing the final match to end in a draw. And he's basically like, yeah, I'm not doing this again. The rules were 10 matches. That's it. Didn't say I had to win them. I just had to be in them. And he refuses to do it. And he basically ends up teaming up with, they've moved forward, and now they've created genetically engineered people who are specifically genetically engineered to fight in these fights. And he develops a relationship with one of the female ones, and they're like, she especially can't win because she's a woman. And it's really weird because all the humans characters don't speak like humans. Like they it's that thing where they say really absurd things as if they're like matter of fact and like everyday things, and like their grammar and the way they sentence structure is really weird and non-human. But you're like, but it takes place in like the far future, so like I can accept that the dialogue is really bad. And yeah, the fights are fun. Like there's the climax of it, the two robots fighting. It's super fun. Like the robot fights, they look good. It's pretty much, it's when Pacific Rim came out, people were like, it's robot jocks, but they're fighting Godzilla, and it's pretty much, it's like the guys in the, it's pretty much, you know how in Pacific Rim the guys are like in the harness or whatever, and they're controlling the robot, and there's two of them.
Yeah.
Robot jocks, it's one person, but it's the same shit. They're like moving around and they're controlling the robots, and like they're helped by a pit crew, and yeah, it's super fun. Was there anything that was interesting about it? Yeah, it's inspired by Transformers and Power Rangers and all that stuff. And yeah, it's like, this is not just me recommending it to the audience, because it's a very fun movie. It's on Tubi. It's free to watch. I'm recommending it to you as well because you would like it. It's good. It gets a little bit dated, but it's a very fun, very peak, absolute peak 1990s movie. Just a very fun, very silly, very silly time. And it made me think of like G.I. Joe, like real, like, it's funny because when I looked it up, it said 90s, but all of my shit is saying that it's 80s. So it's like 1989, 1990. But yeah, it's pretty good. And then the second one I watched is Drop Dead Fred, which is one of those. It's another one where it's like it was initially poorly received. Same thing with Robot Jocks. Initially poorly received and developed a cult classic status over the years. People decide they like this. Drop Dead Fred is basically it's one of those you're having a bad adult time and your imaginary friend comes back kind of movies, kind of stars.
Okay.
And
got it.
It's about this woman who's pretty much been emotionally abused her entire life. Like, her mother treats her like shit. She's married, but she's on the verge of getting divorced from a piece of shit guy who's cheating on her repeatedly. And her best friend is Leia Skywalker.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just randomly Carrie Fisher is there, and she's her best friend. And she's just like emotionally abused, devastated woman. And her imaginary friend, Drop Dead Fred, comes back, and he's basically like an 8-year-old boy, essentially. He's got the emotional maturity of an 8-year-old boy. He swears, he curses, and like this woman like absolutely like hates her mother, who granted is like is awful, is a horrible woman, but like when your kid is saying that she wants to chop your head off, like you could be blamed for thinking that. For being not necessarily the most pleasant person on the planet. But the thing about it that's kind of frustrating is like the movie's unclear as to whether or not like Drop Dead Fred is real or not, because obviously no one can see him, only the woman, right? And it's sort of implied that like she was repressed and he was created out of that repression. Like he's rough and rude because she wasn't, like, kind of thing, and she comes from his subconscious. And there's a bit later on where like she goes to a psychiatrist who like gives her psychiatry medicine that like is gonna kill Drop Dead Fred. So it implies that he's part of her subconscious, but like he manipulates stuff in the objects in the real world and like hits people with shit. So like so it seems like he's a ghost. So it seems like maybe he is real. But then the movie sort of indicates that maybe he's not. And then at the end of the movie, after like he's about to like die from this medication or whatever, disappear, and he pulls her in to this like dream world where and the whole thing is he's like, oh, I can't leave until you're happy, basically. I need you to resolve your issue. And she thinks that the issue is that she's not with the husband. So she's trying to win back the husband, even though he's awful and cheats on her repeatedly and openly and says that he's cheating on her to her face. And he's like, I'm leaving you for the other woman. We're getting divorced. And she's trying to like win him back. And so it's like, oh, in order for you to be happy, you need to get the husband back. And he's like, I can't go back home, go back to imaginary land or whatever until you do that. And so then eventually, like, she goes on a date with this other guy, and she somehow winds up winning the husband back. And Drop Dead Fred is still there, and he's like, oh, why am I still here if you're so happy with this husband who's definitely still cheating on you? And she's like, well, I'll make you disappear, starts taking the pills. And so then it gets to the end of the movie, which obviously the moral of the movie is you need to stand up to your mother and your husband who's treating you like, you need to leave your husband who's treating you like shit, and you need to stand up to your mother who's treating you like shit. And so he pulls her into this like into this dream world where she stands up to the imaginary versions of these people. And he's like, she goes to go back. He's like, okay, let's go back now. He's like, no, I can't go back. But it doesn't really explain why. He's like, oh, I can't go back to the real world. I have to stay here now. And so I was like, oh, okay. So he's definitely not real. He's literally imaginary. This is a figure that she's created. But then you're like, but wait, how is he like controlling objects in the real world? And then the movie ends with she goes to this guy who is childhood friend, and it's like, oh, who's been nice to her and has been understanding of this Drop Dead Fred stuff. And is like, she's like, oh, I don't know what direction your life is going to take, but I'd like to be part of it, kind of thing. And he's got a daughter, and the daughter is like pulling pranks on the babysitter, and you see that she's talking to Drop Dead Fred, and she keeps being like, oh, Drop Dead Fred did this, Drop Dead Fred did this, and the woman's like, oh, and the babysitter and the dad don't believe her, and she's like, no, I believe you, Drop Dead Fred is real, and she sees her doing this like secret pinky swear with him, so he's like, oh wait, so he is real, and the movie's not really all that clear about it. It's more confusing than anything. And like, I quite like Drop Dead Fred. He's funny. He's a funny character. I enjoyed him as a character, but it's just what his deal is really confusing, and it's not explained all that particularly well. It's one of those movies where I'm like, I think given its cult status, we could remake this today. And I think it would be good. I think that maybe they are. Maybe that's what that John Krasinski one is. But overall, it was an okay movie. I didn't like it. Just was confused. It's another one of those ones where it didn't make sense. And yeah. And it's one of those ones where it's funny. I remember people saying that it traumatized them as a kid. I saw a few people being like, and I could see that. It's one of those kind of movies where you like, I could see, and we have a couple of those where like our parents like rented them from the video store thinking that they were harmless and then put them on and then left. Like that's what this seems like. This seems like that movie that like PG-13, like it's technically for adults. It's supposed to be relatable to adults who have lost that sense of childhood or that sense of whatever. And the parent says, oh, it's about an imaginary friend. This is perfectly harmless. And they put it on, and there's a scene where like his face gets all squished and it's really horrifying looking. And I'm like, I could see this being upsetting as a child.
That's fair.
But overall, yeah, the 90s was a weird... George, what do you have to say ultimately about the 80s? Do you have anything to say about the 80s?
People were not afraid to be traumatized.
Nah, I mean, that's the same about the 90s. It was definitely a trip to go back to my childhood for a bit this week. That was kind of interesting. Where it was
yeah,
like,
that's fair.
I always want to go in.
To be fair, some of the things I watched were also from my childhood.
Yeah, fair enough. Drop Dead Fred, it's funny. I picked it, and I was like, I don't think I've seen part of it because I've seen it. It was on Family Channel once, and it was the edited version because he keeps calling her a bitch, and I was like, oh, I don't remember her calling him a bitch. I don't remember this movie having swearing in it because I remember putting it on like midway once. And being like, oh, this is one I'd be interested in because I'm always interested in the like imaginary friend. I don't know why imaginary friend comes back and terrorizes an adult kind of movie. I don't know why. My favorite one of those, they're not even really technically imaginary friends. It's a Robert Downey Jr. movie called Heart and Soul, which I think I could have watched because I think that one's also in the 90s. But that one's also good, but they're not imaginary in that movie. They're ghosts. But anyway, that was the 80s and 90s, everyone. Yeah, good time. I had a good time in the 90s. It was good to go back to the 90s. But with that, the assignment for next week. The assignment for next week is going to be a non-out-of-season Halloween thing. Because I realized it probably was going to... And anyway, we're going to do Universal Monsters. I want you to pick a Universal Monster. I shall be picking Frankenstein. And watch movies related to them. It doesn't specifically have to be an adaptation of the story, but they have to be a character, a version of... So like it has to have... for me, it has to have a version of Frankenstein's monster. It has to have a version of Dr. Frankenstein.
Or Dracula.
So for example, if you're going to do Dracula, you could do Dracula. That's totally fair. He's a fair character. Oh, and you have to watch the original. So I have to watch the original Frankenstein. And if you pick Dracula, for example, you gotta be the original Dracula. And Dracula has to be a character in it. It can't be vaguely about vampires. It very specifically has to be Dracula. He has to be called or referred to as Dracula.
So no Twilight, but Hotel Transylvania is good to go.
Yes, if you want to do Dracula Untold, for example, you can get away with it.
As an example.
As an example. Or if you want to do The Wolfman or...
The Invisible Man.
The Invisible Man. It has to be at least some way kind of related to the version of it that was in the Universal black and white movies.
Or Swamp Thing.
Really the only... Or the thing from the Black Lagoon. Like really... those kind of monsters. So that's next week. We're gonna do that. Look forward to that. In the meantime, thank you once again to Susan from Flight Center for sponsoring this episode. As always, you can find me on TikTok. It's this, but way shorter. This was very long. Where can they find you, Jordan?
Zethgore187, Minecraft Mondays.
Yes, and you could also find us on Discord.
Twitch.
On Twitch. Yeah, he's on Twitch. The links to all this stuff is always in the description. You can join our Discord. You can follow us on Discord. Or if you're more traditional, you can email the show. All of these things are in the description. You can click there if you want to go to these spaces. But until next week, this has been the Spur of the Moment.